Hey everybody, welcome to the UD6. This is the second turn of the first qualifying tournament. I'm today with Mythical. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. We got 5 games, the sort of continuation of the decathlon that started last weekend. We've narrowed down from plus 20 plus competitors down to our top 8. Today they're going to be whittled down even further to a top 4. We're going to be competing next weekend across all 10 games once again to qualify for one of those 2 illustrious, prestigious, delicious positions in the grand finals.
Yeah, this is the first qualifier tournament, so we've seen a lot of small tourneys with just 1 or 2 games, and last week we've seen 5 games in a row, and as you said, we're going to see the 5 others, so it's going to be Cuphead, A Story About My Uncle, The End Is Nigh, Spectrable, and we're going to end the day with a Donkey Kong Country. So 5 very different games with different genres, 5 different games from what we've seen last week. So if the players got here by luck, just by the luck of the draw, and now I hope they've practiced on the 5 other games we're going to see today. Or, and I do know that's the case for most of the runners, they're ready on the whole 10th game selection, and it's going to be fantastic. What game are you most excited for today?
I think Donkey Kong Country. We saw that the bigger, longer, meatier game with the punishing deaths in Shovel Knight last tournament proved to be a big factor, and Donkey Kong Country was, I think, the 6th game
vont pouvoir s'y inscrire pour soumettre des temps au championnat race. Aujourd'hui, il n'y a que 8 personnes. Les 4 meilleurs vont se qualifier à la finale du mois. Nous avons donc a priori quand même des gens assez connus quand même, Kouchas ici, et des gens un petit peu moins familiers des tournois un peu plus avec un peu plus de pression et de compétition. Donc du coup, quelles sont présentations rapides là des personnes d'aujourd'hui. De toute façon, on regardera leur fiche tout à l'heure, mais un premier sentiment sur ces jeux et ces personnes.
Eh ben, on a déjà 5 personnes qui se démarquent de par leur présence déjà depuis de nombreuses saisons. Bro, Tifa, Sablier, Cute Shadow et Mel West, qui sont évidemment de très très gros joueurs et des vétérans là depuis longtemps. Vlad, qu'on avait souvent l'habitude de voir truster les premières et deuxièmes places de nombreux jeux, mais qui s'était assez peu illustré finalement sur des multijeux. Et là, il a réussi à décrocher sa place pour le top 8 de juillet. Et ensuite, 2 joueurs qui nous est un peu moins familiers. Zof qui est là depuis longtemps, mais en tant que team dev et en tant que joueur occasionnel, mais là qui a décidé de prendre les choses en main et d'être très compétitif cette saison. Et Skunkoff, un petit nouveau, j'ai envie de dire, qui a réussi à se hisser déjà parmi la crème de la crème.
A checkpoint or 2 and a death there can really set you back. So yeah, each of these games is going to have their own trials that well, not trials actually, we'll have that next weekend, but it's gonna be a good one.
Okay, apparently we had some audio overlap because VMix likes to unmute the French stream happening on twitch.tv/Ultime Decathlon. But just in English for Speed Gaming now, we have Brothermain, Double Tifa, Sablier, Vlad, Cute Shadow, Melwest, Zoff, and Skunkoff, and it is more evenly matched that you would think just seeing the PBs of the runners, because we have clearly Devil Tifa and Melwest as clear leaders so far for the season, but we are qualifying 4 runners, and the spot 3rd and 4th for today are going to be very, very heavily fought for, because Cuphead is going to be an interesting match. It's all down to tiny optimization and death. A Story About My Uncle, the runners are very close from each other. The End Is Nigh has a lot of strats for the learning. Either you go for the very aggressive strat, but you're going to die a lot, or you go for no death runs, or as close to not dying, and you're going to save time because you don't die, but you are not going as fast. Spectrable is a bit of a joker for today because it's not too hard, but the game behave weirdly. It's all physics based, and sometimes you have that weird bounce that glitches you or kills you where you didn't expect. And DKC is certainly a very good pick for the game that will decide the outcome. First, it's at the end, obviously, but also it's very long, it's very difficult. And here we see where we are in the UD6, actually. So this is the overall pattern if you want to qualify to the grand finals, and then the true ultimate final that will be held live in Fougères in France. We are on the second spot on that purple line, so only the top 4 will qualify for next weekend for the final for that first July tournament. If you don't make it and you are one of those who wants to get there, you have the same opportunity in August or in September, and we will have a last chance tournament, just the 10 games in a row, and where no qualification, no turns, nothing, just 10 games in a row. The top 2, the 2 best players will join the other 6 already qualified. So this is a good summary of what's happening in the UD6. And I hope for anyone who were confused, it's even more clear now.
I particularly like that there is the grand final, but it's not the grand finals. That's the ultimate final on fire live in France. Yeah, that's great, and it is good to see these different paths and how you get there. We do need that "you are here" arrow in there somewhere, but maybe there's already too many arrows. I'm not a graphic designer, but you're right.
Actually,
July 21st. You know the date, so
yeah.
Maybe put a circle and make it blink.
Yeah,
we can workshop. It's glorious.
We actually need like a white glowing circle. That would help. Maybe following along. But last week we've seen about 20 runners, considering they were ready already for playing through the 5 first games of the UD. Which is already like very, very demanding, obviously. And then we had there's 5 other games for today, and next week we have the finals for the 10 games. So if you are ready to compete in the UD, and you are ready in July to play through the 10 games in a row, we ask our runners to play through those 10 games twice per month. So obviously you want, if you're a runner, to qualify as soon as possible, and that's probably a very nice spot to have early on in July for maybe say Devil Tifa or Brotherman or Zoff. If they qualify so early, they will be way more relaxed because they will have the whole August and September months to just spend learning and grinding and practicing new strats and not having to be scared of not passing the tourneys. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets that advantage and if it's actually an advantage or if the runners actually... Oh,
Donc,
I've skipped on the player
chasse
card,
première personne
or
que nous
if
allons
the
streamer
players
sur la
actually,
scène principale et sur les 5 jeux d'aujourd'hui. Brotherman, quelles sont ses chances de se qualifier?
Going
Et
back
si
to
on en
racing
croit
later on the
ses
season,
meilleurs
we'll see
temps,
how well that
de
goes for everyone,
grosses
but
chances, avec
Brotherman
de
today,
barres,
one of the
très
favorites,
belles barres
maybe.
remplies, la flèche aussi sur Spectra Ball,
Yeah,
mais peut-être une réserve.
I mean, it's Devil Tifa and Melwest are kind of a cut above right now, but we're cutting down to 4 here, not 2. So while we sort out audio issues of the remaining 2, I think, of these 2 spots, Brother Main certainly, Zof probably the other one. Zof is at 1850, Brother Main at about 1800 total, and then the next closest competitor would be Skunk off 100 below that. So 100 is considering all 10 games. So when you chop out just the ones we're going to be playing today, those numbers change just a little bit, but they should be fairly consistent. We've also got Mel West here, who is number 2 by 1 point, actually. Both Mel West and Devil Tifa surpassed the 2,000 point mark for the season. which would be the 200-point mark across all 10 games, roughly. You can pick up some extra on something like Spectre Ball, and you'll have to work your butt off if you want to get 200 in Donkey Kong Country, for example. But yes, that lovely 2,000-point mark has already been reached by 2 players. Mellow West is I don't know what the timing was, if he was the first or second, but currently sits in second by just a single point. And then that race, that race time is a little bit behind the grind that Mellow West is known for, whereas Devil Tifa is number 1, both in the grind and in the race. Has come out for all the tournaments, so has had plenty of opportunities to set these PBs, and surprisingly, Spectre Ball is actually one of the biggest disparities between PB and best race time. As Spectre Ball is a game where Devil Tifa has a pretty big advantage over just about everyone else. Brother Main actually pretty close, but yeah, that's one of the games where there's the biggest gap. So it's probably going to be looking, if nothing else, to get that 1022 a lot closer to that 806.
It is interesting to see how well Devil Tifa is going to pull this Spectre Ball trigger on the other player's head. Also, Zaf has already like a 212 points, so that's still like a 20 points lead for Devil Tifa. 20 points is 3 minutes in DKC. Like, it's a lot. It's each single point is going to weigh a lot on today's tournament. You don't want to let anyone take a dozen of points, or you're going to have a lot of trouble like passing the player back. And it's going to happen, obviously. Like, some players are going to fail on anything, but for the easiest, I'd say, games, even though this is speedrunning, so nothing is actually easy, you want to do as well as you can, because, well, you are going to have some issues. Obviously, it's going to lead to some troubles, and Cuphead Race is starting. We are going through the simple difficulty with the current patch, so we don't have the weapon swap shenanigans happening, and you have the in-game timer for all the players on the bottom right corner, because the game has a lot of loading screens, so it may seem like a runner is 2 minutes ahead when actually he has just the load advantage that we cut, because we don't want to compare the players by hardware and just go by skill, obviously.
Maybe a bit of race nerves, Mel West, missing the very first jump of the run in the tutorial section here. But it's not free. You actually need to play this thing. We come here not because we have to, but because we get this coin, and we're going to talk to this guy on the bridge here who gives us another 3, and that's going to give us our starting weapon. I know Devil Tifa and Mel West are going to be using spread. I'm not sure what Brother Main and Zoph's routes are through this game, but some players have opted for roundabout. Looks like we're getting spread from Zoph, so we might get a nice parity among all the runners, or if Brother Main goes for that roundabout, we could be seeing some different strats.
The Ultifa uses the spread against the first boss here. That should go smoothly, because the game difficulty is uneven, to say the least. You are going to have some easy times on some bosses with some easier super usage here on the second phase of the boss. No problem with the first weapon, and then you switch back to the spread shot and you jump back and forth to get as many hits as possible. The spread has a spread to it, obviously, and you are going to miss some hits from time to time, so you want to for the shots to connect as best as you can. Brother Main uses the spread also, so yeah, it's all about that spread shot compared to the roundabout. And it is weird, because apparently the roundabout is both easier to use and maybe even slightly faster now, depending on who you ask, so it's very tough to say.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, maybe it's easier, but if you actually want to go faster than spread, then maybe it's not quite easier. I'm not sure where the strats are at. Cuphead is a pretty new game, so there's a lot of there's a lot of things people still are figuring out. Definitely a huge crowd gathered around this game and figured a whole bunch of things out, but there's definitely some more left to go. So we've got Ribby and Croaks, which is a pretty straightforward boss fight, except the players are already really low on health. You want to save some damage for the end so that you can get in there and let loose with your spread supers. So they're playing it pretty risky, but it looks like Melwest, Zoph, and Devil Tifa all going to finish that boss off. Brother Main still has 3 hits to take here. Here he is getting pretty aggressive. There's all the spread supers. And looks like he's going to get out of this one. Just, yeah, there we go. Knockout.
This fight is very technical. You want to hit those 2 guys at the same time. You want, obviously, with the spread shot, for all your shots to connect. Whereas, it's pretty easy to understand what's happening on that fight. You want to jump on the same pattern as the boss so you can like get your shots to connect, and you want to be very close. Like we see Melwest taking crazy risks on that fight, being like some few pixels away from its hitbox, and then having like some nice shot there. Devil Tifa getting into the hitbox. Oh, sadly missing that one super and taking the hit here. He has to pay attention because no, it's okay. You don't want to get past that single punch the boss throws at you, because I don't even know what's happening after that. If the boss is not dead by that point, you missed something, and maybe he has like some crazy pattern harder to avoid. I don't know.
Especially with the risks the players are taking with, taking hits, getting the invincibility frames, and then going for the supers inside the boss's hitbox. Certainly it's big damage, and on your route you'll be pretty sure that boss is dead, but if he's not dead, you're now at 1 health. So that's not where you want to be when you have to deal with an attack that maybe you've never seen before. But thankfully, no such problems for any of our players today. They've all going to be moving on to Hildeberg with the plane, Melwest with the nice timing on the super as the boss comes back after that attack with the multi-hits. There's going to be one more opportunity for one of those, and then the rest is going to be charging up the 5-card super.
Melwest taking a hit here. This is not so good for him, because he's not going to have the opportunity to go for that multi-hit missile, but does throw that fully charged super that gets you a nice huge missile that deals even more damage. It's pretty hard to say what's worse it, because oh no, Melwest taking, I didn't even see that. It was completely hidden by the foreground.
He didn't see it either. That was pretty mean. There was a purple swordfish down there. It got him right at the end of a fight. This is one of the longer fights. I don't know. They're all pretty comparable, I guess, but each of them is a fairly big time loss. So that was important.
Yeah, and before the tournament started yesterday night, I had a couple of and Zoph died also. But yeah, we were saying with CDV, the French commentator you overheard for some weird reason, that Cuphead was going to be not that deciding for the overall tournament. Like, it was easier to get very close to each other. That said, that it was, if you don't die, and we were like at that skill level, you should not die on Cuphead. But apparently 2 runners died, and those are from the top 4 for the UD6, and there are like, we have huge expectation for them. Maybe it's too stressful, I would understand, but the race setting obviously puts some more extra pressure on you, and even when you're more relaxed, because maybe Cuphead is not that challenging compared to, say, Donkey Kong or Shovel Knight, you may lose a lot of time, and once again, losing time, it makes you lose points, and losing points makes you have to gain some more time on other games, which means taking more risk, and it all goes down together. Like, I don't know, but I'm very surprised. Zoph finally gets Hildeberg. Melwest is on
Cagney Carnation.
Cagney Carnation, thanks. I got a blank here. Yeah, nice fight.
We got Brother Main, Melwest. Spread is not so good as Roundabout in this fight. Brother Main at 2 health.
Nice.
Definitely the thing to look out for is the health in the bottom left. When it starts blinking,
and Melwest dies again.
Oh my goodness! This was where he died in the team tournament match.
And he takes a hit right off the go and chooses to restart. This is very surprising, and maybe like putting Cuphead right off the go, like right off the bat, you start with the game where you certainly don't want to die. Maybe that doesn't work so well for the runners. I will have to ask, and Devil Tifa dies on Beppy the Clown. This is
thankfully
a tough
fairly
boss.
early death in a long fight, but this is not how you want this to go. I mean, I was gonna say, like, you start these things so early, they've barely woken up, but over in France, that's not true. So I don't know what it is that's got to these players, but even we saw Cuphead 2 weeks ago, I think, for the team tournament, and there was a bit of I think Melwest in particular had a pretty surprising death in that race, but the play in Cuphead was incredibly solid, and we're definitely seeing things be a little more shaky today.
Yeah, it's probably because they had like a week to de-rust all 5 games, because last week they focused on the first tourney with the 5 other games, and this is like where your skills in learning and de-rusting show in the UD. You have to get good and be able to race 10 games like back to back, not deciding the order. We didn't ask the runner what they preferred. Like, we just said, okay, you are going to start with Cuphead and then do a story about my uncle, and then the end is nigh, and it's all up to the runners to see how well they practice all the games, and how sometimes when you're speedrunning, when you're learning a game, or when you're grinding, you do not want to switch from a game to another until you reach a certain time or a certain set of skips or skills, and it's hard. And I do totally understand some runners not being so practiced on Cuphead, because it's probably one of the easier games, and they're just focused on DKC maybe because it's more scary, and or just plain bad luck and it didn't work out today. Just
sometimes it's just how it goes. Devil Tifa in the lead for now. I mean, with the loading times, it can be a little hard to tell sometimes, but going off these timers, actually no, it might be Brother Main who's in the lead. It's going to be pretty close between the two of them, both of them on Jimmy the Great. Going out of their way to break the heads here is Devil Tifa. You do actually damage the boss. You charge up your super. You can see he's got all 5 ready for whatever this Cosmic Coffin Slug actually is. Deals a bunch of damage and should pretty much end this phase right away, and has lots of health as well.
When you are right next to the hitbox of the slug like that, you have to pay close attention for the ghost cats that come out the coffin, and it's not as easy as it looks. Like a lot of things in Cuphead, to be honest, like it's way more optimized than you would think, and the runners do their best to get the best damage output all the time. You have to focus on dodging, but also on getting all your shots to connect all the time, and it's way harder than it looks. But once you've practiced, once you know the patterns well enough, once you know how to dodge everything, it works well for all the runners today. And Brother Main finishing Jimmy the Great at around 10 minutes probably. Devil Tifa starting the Barnes van Bonbon at 10:38, so we'll have a point of comparison in about 20 seconds from now.
Barnes van Bonbon, very tricky fight. You got a lot of these things that come out of this castle, they move in ways that force you to move, basically. So you're constantly having to reposition, and that means you're not attacking and dealing damage. So you're constantly, trading off between dealing damage and not getting hit. And the safer you play, making sure you don't get hit, the less damage you are going to be dealing. So it's definitely it's a chance for players to take damage that they really don't want to take, because it is hard to and very important to get your supers on in this final phase that Devil Tifa is in.
he goes for the going into the hitbox there, then jumping back, and it is tricky to do that because you have to dodge at the same time. He takes a hit there. He dies at the end. No.
Oh man.
Second death for Devil Tifa, 2 deaths for Mel West, and our 2 top players for the overall UD6 now in like about, I don't know, a minute and a half behind Brothermain, and Brothermain, he probably didn't enter this tourney like beating both Devil Tifa and Mel West, but starting off with such a lead is going to be very good for his confidence and morale, I guess. Like, it gives you a nice boost because you're like, okay, even if I tie them, I will be still in the lead for a long time in the next couple of games. We said, though, that Spectrable was one of Devil Tifa's biggest strengths for today's races, so we'll see how the second game goes. And obviously, the game is not over until we've seen all bets are off and the final screen of the Cuphead, so obviously a lot can happen. We still have about 5 boss fights to go, so... And Melwis dies again!
Oh man, that is right at the end of the fight. He had already hit 4 spread supers and was dealing damage on top of that. That boss was going to die at any moment, but he beat her to it, I guess. So he is back to the start of that fight. And Brothermain also was down to 1 health for a lot of that fight. It was making me pretty nervous, but he got it done. So he is sitting pretty here, pretty far out in front against Wally Warbles. Which is probably a much easier fight than the Baroness that the other players are dealing with here.
Yeah, probably one of those fights where the difference between simple and normal shined the most, because we have that entire final phase that you might remember if you play through the game, where the boss actually comes back after you've hit him a bunch on a bed, on a medical bed, and you have to fight him again, and the whole story about that boss fight is pretty funny. And because here it comes off screen, you fight the other guy that were his roommate, I guess. I don't know what's happening. And the fight actually stops here in simple, which cuts actually like a quarter of the boss fight and makes it for a very much simpler boss fight compared to the next one, the Grim Matchstick. That's probably the boss fight that killed the most runner so far in the UD6. If we take into account the 4 races that we've done so far on Cuphead.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, we have seen Cuphead 4 times now. 3 streams, but 4 races. And there will be more in the future. Wally Warble's down for Brothermain, Mel West, and Zoph mostly just getting started, and Devil Tifa as well. So despite that death on Baroness von Bonbon, Devil Tifa, it is somewhat close to Brothermain, but not as close as he appears. The timers there is a pretty big disparity between the timers. Yeah. So it's about a minute behind, which is not easy to make up in Cuphead, but we got a lot of games to play that can definitely change over the course of the next few games, but every point is going to be important going forward here.
So Cuphead is like that mid-length speedrun for the UD, about 20-minute raw record. So 10 points is a minute. So it's 10 points in Donkey Kong is a minute and a half, and like Brothermain and Devil Tifa are tied pretty much on DKC if we compare their PBs. Obviously, it's pretty rare to go and beat your PB live or just match it, but it's a good indication. And nice dodges with Brothermain at only 1 HP there, and yeah, it's threading the needle in 2 boss fights back-to-back. Baroness von Bonbon and the Grim Matchstick were pretty hectic for Brothermain there, but nice dodging skills, and he made it just fine.
Devil Tifa's turn at Grim Matchstick. Mel West and Zoph starting the fight as well. You get some opportunities to go for some parries on these pink rings, but I don't know if it's actually not worth it to get it, or if players just don't want to worry about it, or what. But I have seen a lot of players opt to, in many situations, just not worry too much about the super. Just focus on getting the consistent damage and the placement. Devil Tifa went down to just 2 health. It's possible to get all the way down to 1, get right inside the dragon's hitbox, and go for those spread supers. But the players, perhaps rightfully so, after some shaky deaths, are maybe taking things a little safer here on the second half of Cuphead.
Ooh, Brother Main taking 2 early hits on that Honeybee Van Bottom. No, I'm Honeybee.
You're mixing.
Yeah, I'm mixing all the names.
Rumor Honeybottom.
Rumor Honeybottom. Nice. You are better at this than me.
I have them written down, and that's the only reason.
Oh, and Bottom falling, missing. Like those platforms are slightly misaligned. Like you have a tiny gap between 2 platforms, and he fell right in between them on the second phase of the boss, taking 2 hits already. I don't know if that's what he goes for, but that's pretty risky now. Those platforms move ever so slightly to the bottom of the screen, and if you reach the bottom, like the I guess it's Oni that's killing you on the bottom, but you might take some hits sometimes there. It's not the hardest boss to dodge, but you know, it's Cuphead, and what we've seen today, I'm even more worried when the players have only like 1 HP with that blinking red alert on the bottom left of the screen.
Like Melwest does now, a bit further to go in this fight. Brother Mean gets the knockout, Devil Tifa as well, but Melwest is the one at 1 health. Is pretty far along on this boss fight.
He's so close to the boss there. I was worried, but no, makes it just fine, killing the boss at 1820. He is matching those off in in-game time, which is convenient for us.
Yeah, we got the race is as it appears between those 2 players, which means it does appear that Soph is going to be about 21, 2, 3, die, please.
Yeah.
So 24 seconds behind Mel West as Brother Main moves into the Sally stage play fight. Devil Tifa here as well. The first phase, not so bad, but you don't want to jump into the dive kick like we saw just there.
Oh, and that one hurts, actually, because on the second phase of the boss, you have like a lot of stuff on the screen that can hurt you, like all the electrical mice that comes at you, like the screen is crowded sometimes, and it's easy to lose track on a projectile or 2. All those hazards falling at you, you have like a lot to worry about. The third phase is not too bad once you know how to manage it.
Normally players would do those 5 supers and then just stay there and finish her. Okay, barely getting the parry to get over the wave, because you count on, if you're a little slow, that you can finish the boss and take 1 hit off that wave. But he could not. Brother Main could not take that hit off that wave, so he had to actually engage with the mechanics on that third phase, get the parry to get over the wave, and get the boss done. So that is a 3rd clutch kill for Brother Main, holding on to the lead here. It looks like Devil Tifa's passed him. I think actually once you figure the timer disparity, Brother Main's still in the lead, but Devil Tifa is certainly closing the gap.
Yeah, that reminds me, if you actually like see a clutch moment you want to share, don't forget to do some clips on Twitch, just so it's easier for us to find those clutch moments back if we want to go for a highlight reel or something. It's always nice to have. And that fight, the final boss fight, is not too bad. And yeah, this is the patch version, so you don't see those crazy weapon swap you might be used to. Just the runners have actually to choose between 2 weapons instead of constantly using both of them.
Devil Tifa in the final fight, as well as Brother Main and Mel West, of the goal here on simple mode knockout. for Devil Tifa, Brother Main as well. No, into the third phase for Brother Main. That stream disparity. Mel West gets the knockout at 21:09, so going to be about 15 seconds behind Devil Tifa. Brother Main, with the slower computer, I suppose, and those load times, is fixing to be close to a minute ahead here. It's taking a bit of time to get that final hit on Bears, the knockout.
He had 2 HP, so it was not too bad, but still. You don't want to take a hit in Cuphead if you can dodge it, even if you have the HP. You never know what's coming for you, and we've seen the runners actually having big troubles from time to time dodging the shots the games throw at you. But yeah, 21:35 for Melwes, 21:15 that is for Devil Tifa, and Brother Main is going to have a nice lead he maybe did not expect on Cuphead, which is going to be very nice for him to have. And we have 8 runners, so yeah, we're going to see where Cute Shadows and Vlad are on this Cuphead run.
Zof as well into the Phantom Express fight, getting done with the first phase. We see Cute Shadow and Vlad booted up here on stream in Rumor Honeybottom. A little bit ways back, and the players we had on stream also, had their fair share of struggles. So I can only imagine things didn't go as planned for some of the players we have on stream now. We got Sablier, who is finishing off phase 2 of Sally's stage play, and pretty sure is also looking pretty good on health. So not as many supers though, so is going to have to crack open the star and get over the wave.
I played way too much of Super Metroid recently. No! Sablier dying. Oh, and it has to start all over again. That fight is super long and can be tedious because of the hazard on screen and those waves to dodge using the pink star doing a parry on it can be very tricky from time to time to get, and sadly he got caught by the wave. But yeah, the second phase is going to start right now. Zof finishing at 23 minutes. That's a huge time loss, and that means the third spot probably is going to be the fourth spot, the fourth place to qualify on the on next Saturday and Sunday is going to be even more open right now. Cute Shadow starts the fight all over again here, seeing it didn't start as well as planned.
Yeah, that's one of those things where, it's kind of borderline. If you take a hit immediately, then sure, but was more than halfway through the first phase of the fight when Cute Shadow took that hit, but we saw just how different and you have to play on the third phase if you don't have the hits to take. So Cute Shadow didn't want to mess around, didn't want to do what Sablier did and get tagged by that big wave. So did go to play it safe and reset this now is in phase 2. I think took 1 hit, so can take 1 more, but really would rather not into the final phase. Sablier into the Phantom Express. Vlad.
The projectile from phase 2 carried on to phase 3 on Cute Shadow's screen, and I was very worried he did not see it because that would have been a very bad surprise for him. And yeah, Sablier on the Phantom Express here. Very nice fight.
Knockouts on Sally's stage play from Cute Shadow and Vlad. Zoff is using every second he has to prepare for the next race, which is probably the right mindset to have. Sablier finishing off phase 2, and is going to be moving on to the third phase. This one's a little tricky with spread, but it isn't one of these bosses where you can jump up and get the super with all 8 spikes of your super, which does a ton of damage if you can manage. Sablier managed once, missed the first one a little bit. And you really do need to hit with all of them if you want to try to match the regular super, or outdo it rather, in damage. But does get the boss done pretty quickly. Very solid fight. Very nice finish from Sablier, Vlad, and Cute Shadow, not too far behind.
We didn't see Skunkov screen. I don't know if maybe he's already done actually, because like even in the top 4, the runners took their time on Cuphead. Just getting ready. I hope the few minutes Zoff can put in practice now pays off in the long term, and we'll see. Because now Zoff had like about 2 minutes, was 2 minutes behind first place, behind Brother Main, and has 20 points to make somewhere if he wants to get back up there. And he definitely wants to. Zoff has been an incredible runner. He was on a lot of streams and joining for a lot of races, and he's definitely one of the top runners so far for the UD6. So once again, if you can do it, if you manage to be ever so lucky to get on the top 2 spot next weekend, it's very good for you, because you're already qualified for the grand finals. It's all good. You don't have to worry about qualification anymore. You're just there. But if you already get to the finals, that means that in July you're in the top 4. You will get that gold star on your player card, that silver star, on your player card, and it will be already there for the prosperity. You want to get there eventually, and it's going to be a good boost for your confidence. So everybody is going to aim for that, obviously.
Whether or not Cuphead went well for our players, they are now all finished. We got that King Dice or whatever, isn't it? King Dice King, with the hand in the face. That is the kind of anticlimactic end to this category, where you finally get to the big bad boss, and he says, "Nah, you're not quite done." But we are done. And look at this. You called it. Skunkov was not only done when the other racers were done, was done quite a bit before them, with 202 points in Cuphead, is sitting almost 20 points ahead of second place, almost 30 points ahead of our 2 top favorites in Devil Tifa and Mel West. So a fantastic Cuphead for Skunkov.
Yeah, this is going to be very good, because Skunkov is probably is 8th so far in the tourney. He worked hard on those 5 games today, and the practice is showing, so that's going to be very nice to see if it carries on A Story About My Uncle, D&D's Nye, Spectrable, and eventually even TKC. But now Brother Main has that nice lead on second place. And on the bottom half of the leaderboard, Vlad and Cute Shadow did not have such luck and are about 40 points behind fourth place. That's where the cutoff is. And it's going to be very interesting to see how well they manage to climb back in that gap. And between Mel West and Zoff, fourth and fifth place, they have 20 points, 19 points difference, and that's a lot. That's the same difference Skunkov has with Brother Main, and that could hurt in the long term, but we'll see how well A Story About My Uncle goes. The game is very different, so switching from Cuphead to A Story About My Uncle might be troublesome for some runners. Zoff already practiced just a little bit to get warmed up, and it will start actually very soon, and we'll see how well it goes.
I guess probably we'll be seeing both Mel West and Devil Tifa on stream. I kind of expected today that they would quickly jump out into spots number 1 and 2, and then we would want to focus on 3, 4, 5, 6, because that is where the cutoff is. Keep the focus on the bubble there. But both of them, I could see maybe one of them drops down, but both of them have dropped down into the 3, 4, 5, 6, and that means it's not going to be a free ride for them to get to the finals of the July tournament next weekend. We're seeing now some gameplay of A Story About My Uncle. If you saw Inertia last week, it's pretty similar in terms of I'm jumping around on things in first person, but you've got rocket boots, you've got a grappling hook, and it definitely feels quite different. You also have just a lot more control over how you're going through the environment. In inertia, once you leave the ground on a jump, there's very little you can do to change where you're going to end up. Whereas you have more midair control, and of course you have this grappling hook, which is it's the kind of grappling hook that will pull you into whatever it latches onto. It doesn't really swing you, though certainly if you are using it the way that these guys are going to be using it, they're going to be attaching to the edges of things and kind of brushing up against it. I think actually colliding with it can get you a speed boost, but definitely only on the sides. Never bump your head on anything in this game. That's the worst.
Yeah,
but yeah, there's some stuff going on here.
Like any game with a grappling hook, like if you are precise enough with your grappling hook placement, you are going to swing from places, maybe skipping some platforms the devs intended you to land on. And in such story-driven games with like you unlock everything by grabbing them, it obviously skips some dialogue, some cutscenes. The speedrun of a Stubborn Michael is focused really on skipping things. Like you want to get stuck the least possible. Like you want to use the jump and the grappling hook as efficiently as possible, and you want to dodge all the dialogues and the cutscenes the game throws at you. And it's very different from Inertia. It looks kind of the same, jumping in first person, but all the focus, is less in precision jumping and more on precision grappling and remembering all your setup for all your skips. And it's not RNG dependent at all, but the edge boost you mentioned can work or not sometimes depending on your velocity and angle and the pixel you grappled on. And sometimes if you are not quite precise enough, it's not going to work, and then you have to adjust quickly to react on skips not working or working, and can be tricky.
Yeah, there's you can follow your route, your script for how you get through these areas, but it's never going to be exactly the same each time. So there is a small amount, like Trials, there's a small amount of improvisation going on with making sure that you transition from each movement to the next. Things start off pretty slow here in the workshop. We actually just before we get the ability to run or jump or do anything, we're just walking around exploring our uncle's attic, where we find this mysterious suit that seems to fit us like a glove, and follow him into the trash world. He builds basically a teleporter, and the idea was just, well, let's just put our garbage in here so it goes away, which is highly irresponsible. But you go in the garbage teleporter into the garbage world, and it turns out it's actually a very beautiful world with a lot of platforming, and you power up your suit with the grappling hook that we don't have yet, but we will shortly. We do start off with some jumping, though. You've got the long jump, and you've also got a high jump, and those things combined means that the first couple jumps right off the gate here, right out of the gate rather, in Sanctuary, are actually some of the trickier stuff that you have to do in the run, and it only gets trickier when you do the skip in Sanctuary as well. So it is pretty slow getting through the workshop section here, but they're gonna come out swinging, as it were, in just a moment.
So yeah, some runners actually did restart. Maybe they got like a false start. I don't know what happened, but it's all good. And we get into Sanctuary, and obviously you have like no ability yet, and that's why it's probably the hardest already, because you have to use your better jumping skills to make it through. And the game has a lot of universal cycles. Devil Tifa seems to get it there just fine, and that saves a lot of time because those platforms are moving quite slowly. And with the story about my uncle, as more and more skills in jumping and grappling hooks you get, the easier the game. Well, it's not easier, but the game allows for some more errors. If you do misgrab on something, you have like those 2 extra grappling hooks to save yourself, and that helps a lot, especially the rocket boots, whose main usage is to jump high, but also to save you from such falls there. Devil Tifa had told me had a lot of trouble to de-rest on A Story About Miracle. He found the experience to be quite tedious because of all the cutscenes and the dialogues, so I do hope it works well for him in no reset setting. But yeah, some games are more friendly to grinding than the others, and A Story About Miracle seems not to be one of those. And we see the first out of bound yet. Is Devil Tifa trying to land on that small platforms and collide with the kill box?
Yeah, the spot where you want to land on, I couldn't possibly begin to describe it except to say that it is very small. There it is, Devil Tifa landing right where he needs to, and it's much easier from then on out. That is the one part where that trick can really. Oh my goodness! I take it back. It is not.
This one hurts a lot because it was over with the skip. And he's going to fall back here because, yeah, I probably did not do that part legit as it intended so many times anymore. And, oh, wow, that hurts a lot. Like, missing that once is not, it makes the skip not worth it at all already, but missing it twice right at the end here, that jump, you have to grapple early enough so the pull of the beam actually pulls you faster than the kill box catch back to you, and it's weird. And that jump is very tricky also. Let's see how well Devil Tifa does, because you want to chain with the jump right away. Very well done here, very nice.
This is what you were talking about with Devil Tifa in particular, is very good at playing from behind. It's not where you want to be, but it is so important that when that skip doesn't go well, and then it doesn't go well again, and then you try to do the vanilla way, and you realize I don't actually know how to do it that way, that you just come back and you just do it right. And he's looking like showing no signs that he just ran into some really, really big problems, about as bad as it gets in this game. So I'm very impressed with the recovery so far. Though I shouldn't speak too soon. There's an awful lot of grappling gameplay left to go.
Yeah, it definitely gets to the player, like the Devil Tifa, the guy himself is hurt by those mistakes. He's going to be like very pissed off, but when he's actually racing, he forgets about all those mistakes and stuff and just carries on. He has a very strong focus on what he has actually to do, and not remembering all the mistakes you've done. And when you're speedrunning, it's very tough to do because like it accumulates. You are never going to get a perfect run, and if you do focus on all the mistakes you've done, on all the jumps you could have done just a bit earlier, on all the grappling hooks, it's a lot. It takes a lot of space in your mind and memory, and if you stop trying to focusing on all those, it helps, but it's easier said than done. And obviously Devil Tifa is very good at that. It gets first on the second level here, where we are going to encounter Madeline. This is not Celeste, but the girl is called Madeline also, and we have a nice chat with her that we cannot skip, sadly, because the cutscene actually starts right away, right at the start of the level. If we had control on our character on the start, if we had our grappling hook, there probably would be ways to skip that dialogue, but sadly, it's the longer one and unskippable one. And Devil Tifa spend the time looking inside the girl's head, seeing how the model is actually done. Hello there.
It's a bit rude, honestly, but you got to pass the time somehow. Zof and Mel West also finishing off Sanctuary. Once you hit a trigger for the next sequence, the next zone to load, you can kind of do whatever. So you're probably going to see some more weird moments like we were just seeing there. Madeline leaps off the cliff, presumably to her death. She shows up again, but it couldn't possibly be the same person. And then here we go with this really, right as soon as the cutscene's done, you are in it with this really big fling. Devil Tifa managing to get across very well. And now that we finally got control, we can begin to, not just play the game again, but
enjoy
also
the game.
Start to, and also just get those skips going. We're gonna see some stuff, particularly with
this one here.
Refreshing the grapple by landing there. We now have 2 grapples, so this is supposed to be your last grapple on this rock, but thanks to that reset, we have 1 more, so we can go straight onto this one and down here.
Very nice. So here there's like a skip. You don't trigger the cutscene. Actually, Devil Tifa touched the box that triggered the cutscene, so he has to restart. So you want to go on the ledge of that tree, and then once you pass there, you grab onto the surge crystal. So he has now 3 charges of his grappling hook. You can see that on the glove, and the different bars on the around that circle shows how many grappling hook you can use, and that's a very nice jump, barely reaching, and then on the side of that rock you land on the checkpoint. Very nicely done. And during the SGDQ, the real Vincencio, the world record holder for that game and that category, showed actually that you can do all the end of that level with only 2 charges, but it's actually very slow and requires like a lot of very precise setup. Especially there, we see that Devil Tifa has his third charge here and that he uses it. But if you were to land on those moving rocks, you could refresh your charges, but it's actually longer and way riskier than just going for the cutscene skip.
Malwest also gets the cutscene skip and is moving on. First try for him. Devil Tifa is into the chasms, which in a game about precisely trying to land your grapple on the edge of objects, having those objects be utterly shrouded in darkness makes this pretty difficult. A lot of the things, like by design, a lot of the things that you're supposed to grapple on are lit up very well. But we're not so interested in those things. We're interested in grappling and things we're not supposed to, and getting to places we're not supposed to be. So this is a really tricky sequence up this pitch black wall for Devil Tifa.
Very close here. Actually, he grappled onto the his second grapple was very low, and I was scared. You can barely see what's happening. He turned on the gamma as much as he cranked up the gamma as much as the gamma allows to, and this jump is oh my god!
Oh wow! Okay, that was big.
He got the checkpoint. And yeah, so we have that checkpoint we've just seen. The symbol on the ground works as a checkpoint, and it's the only checkpoint we're going to get for the next 2 minutes of jumping and grappling here. And maybe he's going to play it safe and go there. There's like that checkpoint. Yeah, Devil Tifa goes for the safe place here, and I totally understand that. Very nice grapple here. This one is tricky to get in the dark, and yeah, actually goes through the level with actually no issues, and maybe even just that jump giving him some trouble, but all the trickier grappling, no problem whatsoever.
Malwest on the first phase of this really big skip. There's a huge chunk of this level that they're skipping that goes inside the caves and around, and there's messages on the wall about this guy that Devil Tifa is looking at. Skip goes extremely well for Malwest. Is one of the stronger players of the ones competing today, of the ones competing in the UD period. So is doing really well at this game. But Devil Tifa, well, I don't know. There was that sort of false start situation, so I'm not sure exactly where the players stand. But Devil Tifa, after the rough start in Sanctuary, is playing very well through both Village and Chasms, and is going to be moving on to Starhaven.
Yeah, so Devil Tifa is currently third, Malwest fourth, Zoff fifth, and Sablier sixth of the current leaderboard out of the 8 players we have for today. We don't know, obviously, how well Skunkoff and Bordermain are doing. We'll take a peek when any of our 4 runners here are done. Obviously, the less we see of Skunkov and Brothermain, the better it is for them, because it means that they already completed the game, and means that they are keeping their lead. And obviously, next weekend we are going to see all 10 games from the 4 runners that have qualified. So it's not too big of a loss, because we are going to see how well they do anyway at some point during the UD. So it's a big community, and it's good to have the focus on some different runners. But obviously, I say that, and we have both Devil Tifa and Mel West here to show that speedrunning is not all about PBs and racing. It's is full of surprises.
That is certainly true. We got Devil Tifa, who's making his way through the Star Haven. There are some really important skips that are a little trickier, I think, than some of the previous ones we saw in terms of.
No,
that's not going to do it. Needed that grapple to be a little higher. There's a lot of games where you can, once you hit a ledge, you will grab the ledge and pull yourself up, and even with a grappling hook, you think, well, maybe I could just.
This is the same mistake again.
Oh no, yeah, that's not going to do it. That you can't just grab that ledge if you're too low. You just helplessly bonk into it and fall down.
Yeah, you have like no grab ability at all in Story About My Uncle, and yeah, all you can do is refresh your grapples. And this is like heartbreaking, and I've done that too many times running A Story About My Uncle. It is one of the most frustrating things in the game, that like usually you go watching a speedrun, or even just a game, like, okay, that guy does things that I cannot do at all, like ever. I'm not able to jump so far. Like when I'm actually jumping, it's barely a feet off the ground. And here, like, you have the feeling that you could do it. Like if you are so close to the edge, you just extend your hand a little bit, and you could grab onto that. And it's fairly precise. It's not a big skip. You want to go for that, and yeah, it is so much time lost for nothing. And Melos dies right after that, not being able to grab onto the wing there, which is also pretty bad because it's hard to grab onto. And yeah, this
same section, just something about it. I don't know. It's got both these players. It wasn't so much the trying to get the vertical height up onto the platform, but the wing that got Mel West. But right after that, we saw the mistake that Devil Tifa made. Second try going for these wings that move on these cycles. Cycles were important early on, but they're definitely important here in Star Haven. There are some cases where you'd rather latch on to the middle of a thing rather than the outside of a thing. Devil Tifa finds something to stand on.
There's that pixel there that allows you to stand on it. It would not have been too bad to fall, because he still had its rocket boots ability. So we saw the Ultifa grab those boots. There are like some rudimentary jetpack thing. It's just like rockets attached somehow with strong glue to some boots, and it allows when it refreshes to literally just like trigger the rockets, and it give you a nice boost through the gaps when you're jumping, like we see right now. Gives you some speed and just some height. And when you play through the game the first time, you use that constantly to just like correct your positioning and trajectories. And in speedrun, obviously, it's quite slow, and you want to use it as efficiently as possible, like the grappling and your jumping, obviously. But it's a nice thing to have just when it doesn't go so well.
Yeah, it's a little clunky. Like if you just need a little bit of correction, activating a gigantic rocket boost can sometimes be not what you're looking for in that situation. So it can save you, but it usually will cost you quite a bit of time to, maybe you boost way past where you want to go, and then you fall back down on top of it. But we saw Devil Tifa going for a reset on these fans. This is another thing that you can do. There's a couple of these throughout Star Haven. It's pretty tricky, but so it didn't go well for that first time, but gets it second try. We'll see more of these fans, and we'll see more of how the players adapt to where their position is, where their cycle is. Devil Tifa, I thought was going to go for a reset on that rock, but that's not the strat.
Yeah,
so
it was weird. So here you have that village, right, coming up, and there's that huge cutscene. It's about 3 or 4 minutes, and you don't want to wait through that. So you have to fly over the box, that the trigger that gets you there. And the best way to do that is to either you have enough height. It does make it. Wow, barely. Okay, was scared for a moment. Either you do that or you use the checkpoint right at the beginning of the cutscene to fly across it, above it. But very nice doing it in one swoop there. Sadly had to restart two times, and dying and restarting in that game, although not as punitive as Cuphead, it's still like a lot of time you lose there, and the Ultiva has some time to make if he wants to grab onto the first or second place. Even though it's not necessary to qualify for next weekend, but still you have to stop making those jumps like barely too tiny, too small, not making it from a few inches all the times, and yeah, it's not working so well for Devil Tifa right now on A Story About My Uncle.
It did get that skip though, and that's a big time loss to try to do that skip again, so he's going to be very happy that he got that. We're seeing some more players get it now. Approaching the end of Starhaven, which is close to the end of the game. There's one more area left. You can see it beautifully in the distance, the ice level, basically. Ice in a game where you're mostly grappling through the air is not too much of a concern, except that you can't grapple onto the ice. So we'll see some, on some players trying to get around that. There's probably the biggest. There's no single big skip compared to some of the other really big skips in the game, but you're constantly skipping all kinds of things, going kind of out of bounds and in some creative places. In the ice caves, Devil Tifa's activated the cutscene that is also unskippable and is pretty long here. It's Madeline has found a place here in the Strays and Starhaven, and she's going to be here and grow into a better person, but we don't care. We're moving on. We got words of race, TikTok, but
yeah, and we know the story.
We'll let her
already.
say goodbye here and get moving on. So into this tricky section with these three fans is got one more grapple left, and the cycle there was really hard to work with, so I think he's just going to hold on to this one and ride it out. Barely getting the grapples. These fans were not in a good place for him, but it looks like that we still get the rocket boots, so he's going to make sure that he lands where he needs to.
Sablier and Zoff are actually quite close to each other. Sablier misses the escape, has to start again. I hope it's going to work well for him. You just have to mash with a good angle, your jump, and yeah, Sablier gets it. Zoff is going to get to the exact same top part right now. So those two runners are about 20 seconds apart, and they're currently 5th and 6th, so they want to get there. Either Skankoff or Brothermain have some terrible issues with the game, and they manage to barely get to top 4, or the gap is going to be even bigger between 4 and 5th. And I don't know, sometimes the tournament maybe like it's never going to stop before we actually see the whole story of the 5 games, but it's going to be harder and harder to close the gap. And well, DKC might be there just to settle the story, but I know that Zoff and Del Sablier are probably on the hardest spot for that tournament so far.
Devil Tifa in the hardest spot of the racers on stream for now. Already did one big skip, and that's not going to work, but he did manage to get another grapple, so he is going to land on top of this now. That's going to reset. Most importantly, the rocket boots. You can use grapples to get extra height, but only if there's something to grapple to, and there's not a lot. So rocket boots are the way to really get height in the ice caves. Earlier we saw a big skip that Mel West is doing, where you're supposed to go away and do a thing and activate this really iconic kind of cool scene that I'm sad gets skipped, but it gets skipped. All right. Yep. Yeah. It's a scary moment there for Devil Tifa.
Like, this game gets me sometimes. You see the guy actually missing his spot and falling to his death, and I have like that strong void fear, like you don't want to fall, and it gets me sometimes. Just please make it safely to the ground, and you are falling way too much sometimes to for my comfort zone on the story about my uncle. But yeah, we get to that nice, like close to the out of bounds, close to the bounds sections. We actually are still inbound, but taking advantage of the fact that what you see is what you get in the story about my uncle. If you see some nice platforms, you can use them to land, and there are very few kill boxes actually in the ice caves. And here we are going to use the rocket boots to actually skip that checkpoint we barely see on the right. Oh no, this is not good. I don't know when the checkpoint was. Oh, fall back.
Yeah, that was a big setback for Devil Tifa. Just went for the grapple and I think hit it, but let go of it. You know, the finger came off the mouse or something. I don't know, but that one got away from him.
So Mel West actually passed Devil Tifa here. Is on the first spot. We don't still know how much time difference there was on the start. Maybe Mel West is actually like a minute ahead of Devil Tifa right now. We obviously are using the player's timer to for the better accuracy. So we have exactly the time they had, and we do not take into account like some mishap happening at the start. Like, it's totally understandable if you are not right away on your ready button. Sometimes you are going to lose a few seconds, and sometimes in tournaments stuff happens. But Devil Tifa with the better route there on those few jumps actually gets back to the first place. It's very close between the two players, landing actually in sync on that platform. Melo is taking a bit more time for those few jumps, but it's very close. And we are almost at the end of the game. It's just a matter of minutes now before we find our uncle and get back to the weird world where we don't have those magical powers, and we have a daughter and a family actually waiting for us.
I sort of, yeah. It's like it's you as an adult telling a story about when you were a kid. So, you would go on to have a daughter. I don't know. I might take the rocket boots over the daughter. Maybe that's just me, but that's where we're headed. We're headed there fast because of these rocket boots. Actually, that out of bounds sequence that the players were doing, largely designed to get around losing the rocket boots. There's a large fall that just kind of inexplicably breaks it, because I think they wanted a section where you didn't have them. But
Midwest was I'm
not going to do it. The rocket boots, having them in a section where you're not supposed to have them, totally breaks it. That vertical climb section that that both Devil Tifa and Mel West were just rocketing through, goes by very smoothly when you do have those rocket boots. And now we're into pretty much the final sections of the game. Mel West is dropped back a little bit in terms of the beautiful sync we had between the two. So it will be interesting to see where their final times end up. Devil Tifa, I didn't think that was going to work. So the rocket boots to save, to get the height, it's going to be plenty, is going to be able to save himself there. It's not something you want to be in the position to have to do, but it's an important skill for racing this game.
Yeah, it is scary. Like, this game really is, you don't want to fall. You want to have that last grapple, that last rocket boots usage. Yeah, we saw Devil Tifa trigger right at the end just to save yourself. It can be really scary. And you can lose a lot of time actually. Like, we saw Mel West just missing a single jump and actually falling, and we skip so many checkpoints in that speedrun. We see, like, I don't know, about 4 or 5 each level. When you play casually through a game, it's almost, oh no,
Ooh, no,
yes, the rocket boots. He has to land now.
Yeah, he has no grapples. He needs to find that ledge. Okay.
Oh, that was scary. I totally understand the mistake. It's so easy to make. Like on that final ceiling, you are Spider-Manning yourself through those crystal. The crystals replenish your grappling charges, but you have to have that one final charge that allows you to shoot on the crystal and recharge you. So it's weird, and like it's a mistake really easy to make, like not being precise enough. We saw the Voltifa actually miss twice on those crystals, and yeah, got lucky enough to make it. That mistake, I don't know, like a couple of swings before, and he was done to do it all over again. And we saw in the, I think it was in the team tournament, like actually a team losing the first spot because of that final part there.
While we were focusing on Devil Tifa's final run, we can see Melwest has been struggling with some stuff here, going to try to save himself. Bonking his head is not. There we go. Gets the slingshot and is gonna be able to get back on that platform. Sometimes, while you're messing around, desperately trying to save yourself, in some cases you're better off just hitting the reset button and trying again. But like you said, the checkpoints are very far apart in Ice Caves, so it's almost always worth it to try to save yourself. And bonking right into that rock. Rocket Boots are going to do some work here getting into this platform, so he's going to be okay, but you got to be worried about that as he approaches the final downward descent like we saw. I think his times are going to be pretty close between Devil Tifa and Melwest. Devil Tifa is just kind of watching the final cutscene where your uncle lays out what has actually been going on. And I think we're actually going to be doing the epilogue as part of this, right? So we're going to be doing the final walk through the workshop. It starts with this, it starts slow, it ends slow, but in between it's all high octane action. Melwest missed the crystal.
Doesn't have the. Oh yeah, that's brutal. Once again, it just wants to drop right now.
Oh no!
No, he should not do it. He should just like keep
play
on
it out.
Going back.
Come on. Oh no! He's just mentally broken from that.
Okay, he's going back to it. Okay, he had to take like a deep breath. The 30 seconds he lost, I totally understand. Like once again, this is you have to learn and practice 10 games. The game list is actually fairly dense. We have Shovel Knight, Cuphead, Storybook My Uncle, Spectral, Metal Slug, Inertia, Castlevania Eye of Sorrow, DKC, Donkey Kong Country, Trials 2, and The End is Nigh. Today we are playing only Cuphead, Storybook My Uncle, The End is Nigh, Spectral, and Donkey Kong Country. But it is intense. It is going to be frustrating, like from times to times. And in a race setup, missing those parts that Melwest actually like practiced a lot. He is one of those runners that play a lot the games like Devil Tifa, like Zoff, like Sablier, like every runners we see today. And like he probably just missed the crystal by either like a few pixels. Maybe he is under the impression that the game actually didn't register him shooting at the crystal and it was just purely unfair. I don't know, and maybe it was actually, and sadly those things are going to happen, and they are like totally devastating. Especially like if you are grinding or racing and you just miss like first place or PB or anything, and like some runs obviously you are going to care more about than the others, and in a competitive setting, if you are all about winning, if you are liking like the competitive aspect of things, it's going to hurt a lot.
Yeah, it's not something you like to see, but it's an important part of competing in an event like this, of being able to deal with those moments. And so maybe taking a moment to jiggle your mouse around and jump off a cliff once or whatever you need to do. You're certainly losing time doing that, and those are points that you need now more than ever. But if that's what it takes to put that moment behind you and focus forwards, then maybe that's just the thing to do. Devil Tifa is the first one officially through the workshop into the final cutscene. This is you as a father retracing your steps with the postcard that you've written to your uncle who stays behind in the other world, because you're like, hey, you accidentally started a world over here. You should probably take responsibility for it. And he goes, oh yeah, okay, and then you never see him again. So but you see this lovely picture of you and your daughter, so he gets like an update on where you're at, and that's the end of this lovely story that Zoph is making not so lovely with this weird camera
this is
zooming
not
perspective
good.
thing he's doing. This is freaking me out a little bit.
And we had like a player change, and it is Cute Shadow that we have. I don't know if that means that Skunkoff and Brother Main are already done. Probably, actually. I don't know. Cute Shadow in the middle of the final chapter here, the Ice Caves. It is where Melwest, I think, fell there and had to... No, it was Devil Tifa that fell. We saw a lot of... I don't know if it's mistakes or just small, tiny missed jumps that translated into huge time loss. But yeah, those few swings here are actually quite tricky because the game does not intend you to skip that platform where you lose your rocket boots. So it is tricky, and yeah, Cute Shadow makes it just fine, even making it look easy. And there, the rocket boots are so good. You just want them here. It's where it saves like the most. Like compared to what you have to do, this is probably the biggest time save in the game, because it is tedious to get up there just using your grappling, because the grapple pulls you towards where you grappled, but it is quite slow. We see it here. Cute Shadow is saving his rocket boots to try to touch the ground as late as possible. Sadly, bonks on the ceiling and get pushed back to the ground. Has to walk through that little tiny hole in the ice and gets the tools to repair the rocket boots that were never damaged in the first place, but you still have to repair them, because that's how video games work in the programming sense, the software sense. Like the game has some triggers, and if you skip one trigger, doesn't mean you're all going to be able to skip the second one.
Yeah, thankfully the game doesn't fall apart because it's trying to repair something that doesn't need to be repaired or anything. It's what lets this route be what it is. We're actually seeing this is not some crazy out of bounds shenanigans. This is actually a secret, sort of. You may have saw just a little glimpse of something on that dark platform, and it's a little Olaf from Frozen looking snowman that they hid on this little platform. There's all kinds of little hidden platforms all throughout this game that are pretty fun to find. Most of them out of the way and not useful, but that one actually is quite useful for a speedrun. So we make use of it in the run, and setting up now for some more largely unintended stuff. Find some sort of purchase. I don't know how you slide all the way down that thing and then find something to stand on, but that is exactly what Cute Shadow did.
That's very good. And yeah, holding off the reset button long enough to find that little ledge was fairly good. And we saw Devil Tifa on Star Heaven doing the same thing. This is not going to work, but you have the rocket boots to save you, and you land on that platform. Very nice, Cute Shadow, saving the day. And then careful, because it doesn't have an extra charge here. Still has the rocket boots. Find the ledge of that platform, and we'll find the checkpoint here. Can breathe. And final part here, we saw Melwest and Devil Tifa have trouble with it. Let's see how well it goes here.
I mean, that whole section, numerous players had, more than one stumbling spot, where Cute Shadow flew through pretty much all of it. Wondering what exactly got them earlier in the race to put them this far back, because they definitely seem like they know what they're doing in this game.
Yeah.
Doing very well with the final aptly named Spider-Man sequence that you said earlier. and cuts it pretty short, so it's going to be running in long jump. Ooh, a weird bounce off the side of that thing, but looks like it's going to be fine. Just some a sprint to the finish here for Cute Shadow, as Vlad is all the way back at the start of the ice cave section. We can see actually a little bit more about this skip. Is actually, maybe he's just messing around at this point because he's aiming at the wrong. Oh wait, was this the one where Vlad doesn't have a time on the board yet? I don't think it was this game.
Actually, I don't remember. Vlad is definitely.
Oh, it was DK.
Yeah, Vlad is definitely one of the runners that have very little chance to pass, because he does not have yet the full 10 games. So he was lucky with a draw on the first 5, and now has like clearly 2 games he's less experienced with, or he's totally aiming at the wrong ice block. So it's never going to work, because on that specific ice block you have nothing to grab onto. On the one to the right, you have he realizes it. And here you have
it's higher up, but
slightly on the little ledge we see, on the little crack, you can grapple.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a sheet of ice that's blocking all the grappling point, and you're kind of not supposed to know it's there, so that you go to the right and there's a nice sequence, and then things start falling, and this sheet of ice kind of shakes loose and reveals this path. But if you know it's there, it turns out you can just kind of grapple straight through the ice. So just needs to aim higher. He has no idea what he's looking for here, so he's clearly he knows you're supposed to look over here and you click a button. He's definitely unpracticed at this part of the game.
Yeah, let me check.
So I mean, obviously he has done pretty well to get to this point in the game, so I wouldn't be surprised if
he probably has a time.
If he had like an hour more or something to learn the route for these ice caves, I bet it would have been no problem for him.
His PB is 36 minutes and 30 seconds, so nothing too bad, and clearly a lot of work to get there. But let me check, when was that PB done? Vlad submitted lots of PB, all his practice, and I see they played a lot of Cuphead, Eye of Sorrow, and a Story About My Uncle. Actually got like about a dozen of runs there, but his PB was done on the 12th of May. So if he did not practice since then, that's 2 complete months without running the game. And the time is actually over already. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised. The 40 minutes allowed for Story About My Uncle went way faster than I expected. And Skunkoff and Brothermain actually got first and second place again. They are 5 points apart. Skunkoff leading at 380, and Brothermain on second spot at 375, with a fantastic 192 points on A Story About My Uncle. So that's less than 31 minutes. That's very good.
That is more than very. This is fantastic for these two. I did not think that Devil Tifa and Mel West were going to be pushed to the brink where they are, but Mel West is 15 points away from not even getting to top 4 next weekend compared to Zof. So this is shaping up to be pretty interesting. We were worried that there was going to be a big gap between top 4 and bottom 4, but that's clearly not the case. Sablier also very close. There's certainly actually Q Shadow's time has yet to be added for Story About My Uncle. It's not going to be as high as some of these others, but it should get on there. So when that's added, we'll see just how far Q Shadow is away from Sablier, Zof, and Mel West. But the 292, 310, 325, those are all fairly close. 20 points compared to when you have 325, 310 doesn't seem that far away, but 15 points also translates to a minute or so depending on the game, which does seem like a lot. So it's hard to say, but it's what we've seen earlier. These swings are more than possible. So this top 8 for our July tournament is shaping up to be not what we expected, and I am very excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, and also, like, big shout out to Mel West for not giving up. Like, I totally understand the frustration, and is still there. And just like the difference it makes between giving up now or being on fourth place, 15 points ahead of Zoff, and just barely 25 points behind Devil Tifa. So if Zoff has a chance to make up 15 points to grab on the top 4, maybe Melwest also has a chance to get 25 points to pass Devil Tifa, but maybe Devil Tifa may be able to grab 25 points on the next few games and pass Brother Main, or Brother Main could eventually get the first place on the Endless Night, leading up with 5 or more points and get to the first place. So obviously a lot to be done yet for the 8 runners we have on screen today. Sablier is one of those runners I'm very excited to see, because he was like a bit worried he would not be able to get the time on the weekend during the summer to join in on those tourney, and he's doing like very, very well. He's been with the UD since like UD3, so that's 2 years of speedrunning and learning about 40 games, so fantastic runner, and he's very good, very solid on Spectrable. On DKC is one of the better runners with 43 minutes PB. On the Endisnai is probably his weaker run today with only a PB at 28 minutes. But if he manages to get like a good enough time on both the Endisnai and Spectrable, he's going to be certainly one of the contestants for top 4 at DKC. And as you've started the stream today with saying how important DKC was, it's going to be very decisive for Sablier to do well enough on the next 2 games to grab onto that advantage he has on the final game today. So he's so far on the 6th place with 33 points behind for 4th place, where Melwest stands so far. And that can be very intimidating, because Skunkoff and Brother Main being ahead of Devil Tifa and Melwest, they have that nice confidence boost being ahead of the first and second of the global PB leaderboard, as we see some footage of the Endisnai. If you are not familiar with the game, it's a nice platformer.
Yeah, it's definitely got some roots in something like Super Meat Boy, in terms of visual presentation. Obviously, same artist and stuff, but in terms of just the way the levels are presented with the stark boundaries about here is exactly where these levels are, and here's exactly where you are, the precision involved in these things. And the quick restarts when you die, and just the general solid platforming that the game is known for, all pretty much applies with the Endisnai. Instead of a ball of meat, you're a ball of goop, and you can't wall jump, but you can hang on ledges and bounce off of fish, like we saw Zof, who has taken every opportunity to get some practice in before these races start.
Yeah, I'd love to know what Skunkoff and Brother Main are actually doing right now, because obviously, like, putting some extra, it's not practice, it's just like getting the hang back onto the game, like knowing how it jumps, like getting the feel of it. But taking like Devil Tifa and Melwest are just waiting for the race to start, maybe like if you play through a couple of levels quickly, you're going to focus too much on those couple of levels and not going to be relaxed enough, just not having the flow of the run going, because the Endisnai, one of the biggest things you have to learn is knowing exactly how the level chains together, like remembering as soon as you enter a room what the next room is like, because you are going maybe to have a different jump to do at the right of the start. All the platformers where the levels change so quickly between them, you have to know exactly what you are doing on the next room, even without seeing it, and that's tough. It's definitely something that you have to practice, and doing only practice on ILs on individual screens, actually it's not going to help you so much with that, and certainly it's maybe better not to practice a single level and just get the confidence high enough to go with the flow. And I'm very interested to see where Devil Tifa goes from now, because I've said it a couple of times. But he is very very good at doing like huge coming backs. Like he's on third spot right now. He might just swing to the first place, like just get onto there in 1 or 2 games, just because he's just a little bit behind and has the skills to get back up there.
We'll see. The race is just about to start. Skunkoff is definitely stronger in the first 2 games compared to our last 3, but Brother Main is, right up there with the best of our competitors in The End Is Nigh, as well as our final 2 games, Donkey Kong Country and Spectra Ball. So Brother Main well positioned to stay in the top 4, in even the top 2, whereas Skunkoff is going to be under a lot of pressure to perform in games like this, and this is where Devil Tifa, Melwest, Zof, and Sablier really need to focus their efforts and challenge for those 2 spots. So we are off. We start with The End, which is, probably we start the show with the showstopper apparently, but
Melwest falling there.
Yeah, just a little misgrab on the ledges. In terms of mechanics, you've got these ledges that you can grab onto. You've got the fast fall, which is the really big thing. Obviously, if you're trying to go upwards and you want to keep hitting these ledges and then jumping off the ledge as soon as possible, the fast fall will let you grab those sooner. But the big thing is that jumping off a ledge sideways gives you a fast jump sideways with a little bit less height. But a lot of the time, you're very interested in going fast sideways, so those jumps help a lot. And the fast fall, if you hold it while you walk off a ledge, you will kind of zip onto the edge of the ledge, and it's a little weird to get used to, but each of them that you throw in actually saves quite a bit of time. So players are going to be opting to do these sideways jumps in all sorts of places.
One of the probably trickiest screen of the start of the game, where you have to time correctly the moving objects on the screen. It's always like harder to gouge a jump when your target is actually moving, even if it's slow. But it's very close, and Devil Tifa gets to the hard flats first. This is like when each time the world change, you have like a strong visual cue that it's not exactly on the same spot. Devil Tifa actually forgetting he had to jump there and getting small jump and is missed. Yeah, has a different timing and gets onto that enemy right off the bat. Has to do it all over again. And you see, like, I love watching those kind of speedrun. It's quite finicky to practice, but when it all goes nicely together, you have like some super precise jumps chained together back to back very smoothly. Always very nice to see. That's the appeal of like many speedruns, I feel, as a viewer experience.
So Melwest is going to be the one in the lead. Nice shortcut here, activating this falling block and using it to avoid having to ride the big block all the way around. And some pretty straightforward stuff with the springs. Now see, he is on a different cycle with these floating puffs now, so some improvisation there. That's definitely the case. Not so much early on, though we're seeing some of it here, certainly. But later on, there's a lot of things operating on cycles that are much shorter. So small hesitations will really change where things are, and very often it means you run into a bullet in the machine or Exodus or something. But the players are dealing with those situations very well. Nice tricky jump off of the frogs to get the height that you need. These are not easy. The frogs are very predictable. There are some birds later on that are much less predictable, but it's still not the easiest thing to get your jump on the first try with these frogs.
We saw a turn back here from Melwest. We actually have like a shorter path. The game does not interconnect like in a linear fashion. You have some secret exit that leads to some different levels. Usually it's on the ceiling, like you go through a little hole you can manage to fit, and you have like a different exit and a different entrance to somewhere else. And here in the Art Flats, the entrance is right at the end of a longer screen, so it's actually faster to go through the secret levels. But the secret levels are way harder than the normal levels for World 2, so gave Melwest a little trouble, but not too much. And we got to overflow the third world of the game. The category for the Endisnai is just the friend, free your friend, build your friend back together, stitch it together, Monster and Frankenstein.
Make a friend.
Yeah, make a friend, exactly. Like you need a friend, you are going to find parts of a friend, 3 parts. You need a head, a body, and a heart, because that's necessary if you want a good friend, and you're going to make it at the end. And that's when the speedrun that we're doing today ends, when it's actually just half of the game, the first half of the game, and the difficulty ramps up like crazy on the second half. You have actually like limited amount of lives, and it's way harder to race than what we are doing today.
Yeah, especially because the lives are these little tumor-looking friendly fellows throughout the levels here. We just saw Melwest pick one up because it's on the path here, but many of them are not on the path, so you really don't have many of them when you go for that final sequence, and they count as your lives. So yeah, doesn't fit very well. Plus, there's a lot going on in the UD in all of the other games. So when you've got to learn the entirety of Shovel Knight and Area of Sorrow and all stages of Donkey Kong Country, there's already plenty on the runner's plates. So this is fine. This is a great fit, and it shows off the good stuff about this game. Melwest struggling a little bit with some of these gas clouds that will sort of tick down. You need to get into fresh air before that third sort of tick will get you. But he's through it now. He's into the Wall of Sorrow.
Wall of Sorrow makes a lot of use of the fast fall button. You have those cycles here, and especially in the next room, the only way to make it in one cycle, like we are going to see here Melwest attempting, is going to snug here into barely making it. If the only way to make that is to use fast fall between each jumps, like trying to minimize the airtime as much as possible, and it's very, very tight, but makes it look easy, like Devil Tifa does. They're both very close to each other. The runners have the courtesy to show their in-game timer, because the game has a lot of very tiny loads between each screens, but we see probably like 200 different levels during the run, and it's very nice to be able to tell the exact difference. Once again, trying to, like Cuphead, trying not to make any difference if you have like a better hardware, a better computer or not. Riding those birds is very tricky, but once again, Devil Tifa makes it look easy, especially on that screen, probably the worst screen in the game. Devil Tifa backing up, fails the ride on the birds and dies, starts again there, jump, 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 fails again. No, and that's what you don't want to happen in the Endisnai. Dying once is okay, but once you've died once, you might start to chain the deaths together and get stuck in an infinite loop of you not succeeding.
Which is rings. Hits a little close to home, but yeah. I'll deal with it. We got Melwest actually was doing much better with the birds. Had some troubles, but got through that one screen that Devil Tifa was on, and is now done with the birds. Thankfully, they have a very short time period here in the run. They wear out their welcome very quickly, and we're moving on through almost to the end of Wall of Sorrow, jumping into, it's a little hard to see, but there is a spot of fresh air in the middle of all the gas clouds that the players jump to as they ride that platform up. And
careful.
Yeah, that was a bit scary, but he did get the fresh air even if he missed the ledge, so it did not result in a death. And Melwest is just looking really good moving through the end of Wall of Sorrow.
Yeah, we see that the timer turned red like a couple of seconds before it got to Exodus, so he is close to PB, actually, like a couple of seconds behind after the first 4 worlds. So we passed probably the easier part of the runs when you are at that skill level, and maybe Exodus and the machines are the hardest world. So obviously nothing. I promise nothing. I didn't say it so early that it was going to be a PB, but he's in a good pace. He's doing way better than what we've seen in Cuphead. He's in his element now. We see the quick jumps. We see that you actually can notice that he falls faster after a certain jump, and he is using a lot of those fast fall. And sadly, it does not make it here. And yeah, once you start dying, you are going to die a couple of times. Like it's almost normal. It's certain. It's the certainty of you getting out of sync with the level and having to readjust once after you've died.
Yeah, there's just something mentally about you thought you were doing one thing, and then because the deaths happens just so fast, so you're like, oh, I'm dead. Oh, okay, I'm not where I thought I was. I'm over here. And in that small hesitation, you're already not going to be doing what you're supposed to do on that level. So it doesn't go well, and you die, and it happens again. And so it takes a little bit before your brain kind of catches up with what happened and knows where it needs to be in order to get you back into the race. Melwest is playing pretty aggressive, jumping over some stuff and skipping some cycles. And Exodus here is looking very good. Devil Tifa in this really tough room that we saw Melwest fall in.
Oh,
and he falls as well.
That's commentary curse emote worthy for you in chat.
Pretty much.
It's like this room is not the trickiest because it doesn't have like any crazy skip onto it, but it's just already hard enough as is. When some rooms are already hard and actually have like faster strat built into it that can get you, and the runners know. I know them. I know Melwest and Devil Tifa. They know more than what they're showing today. They know some skips that are way too risky or hard, especially in the room we see Devil Tifa here, probably in Exodus, one of the rooms that have the more crazy strats that the runners actually actively choose not to go for today because it's a race and it's scary, but Melwest goes for that strat. Very nicely done. We are almost done with Exodus there.
Yeah, this went by pretty quick. Some nice cannonball jumps, and barely made it onto that final one, but he does, and Melwest picks up the head. So we're back to the split, aptly named because it splits into 3 different paths, and each one has a part of our friend that we need. So that's 1/3 of this final section done. We're moving on to Retrograde, which is a nice break compared to Wall of Sorrow and Exodus, but it has its own share of challenges. There's actually a pretty tight sequence there of jumps from Melwest to get up before those moving platforms close the door. Devil Tifa with a really scary moment at the end of Exodus, but manages to hold on. And yeah, the premiere feature, I mean, it's pretty gross, but I guess it's a feature. No, one too many blocks broken for Melwest. Is this goop at the bottom of the screen for Retrograde. This is, if you are close to it, it will start coming up to try to get you. And
with the grossest noise ever in a video game.
It's very unnerving, even if it's a speed run and you probably get used to it. But I could imagine it actually having a small factor in making you a little antsy about, oh, not quite. This is a really tough section.
Yeah, those crumbling blocks, as soon as you touch them, even if it's just bunking with your head, not just landing on them, they will break, and you need like a set amount of blocks, and you have a lot of those in Retrograde, and Melwest is going through here, but as soon as he touches a block he doesn't want to touch, he has to reset the level once again, and this one is hard already, because on the last block you have to grab onto, jump, and make it to the pass there. And if you want to make those few jumps he did to get to the top of the screen, you have to get a very quick fast fall between the two jumps, and those jumps were very close together, and it's fast falling is like one extra press of a button you have to make. And it's all those tiny inputs you have to think about. And like thinking about all that precision with those goggly, gnarly noises, those moving things, it's awful. You don't want to do that. And Melwest falls there. Grabbing onto that corner here is actually quite precise.
Melwest had a huge lead going into retrograde, but it's starting to dissolve just a little bit. Devil Tifa is activating this. I mean, it's a pretty long level, so this is why it appears that Devil Tifa is catching up, and he is, but not quite as much as it appears, I think, as Melwest moves into the machine, which I think is probably the toughest part of the run.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot of guns, basically. They're almost always trouble. They fire very quickly, so there's all kinds of hazards and projectiles everywhere. We're seeing this. I don't know what it's like, water, but also like anti-gravity.
Anti-grav waterfalls. It's you have almost the same physics as you had in water. Plus, you can get some extra vertical momentum if you press down and jump at the same time. So you have some tiny skips where you grab onto the top platform of the waterfall if you time that correctly. It is finicky. It's very weird to get used to. The very weird thing the game does is that you keep your horizontal momentum on those weird physics part. So on the water or those anti-grav waterfalls, if you ledge jump into them, you will exit them at that same horizontal speed, and that means you have to think about how you enter and leave those parts very precisely. And if you miss a jump or you lose that extra momentum, you are not going to be able to make it as you plan to, and it clearly makes for some harder strat than it looks, and harder strat than they should be. But you have on Super Meat Boy those extra element, also those anti-gravs orbs you had on the Raptor that were pretty troublesome to deal with.
Yeah, there's the speedruns that do crazy stuff with squeezing through or doing boosts with those are fun. These the ones in this one are a little less crazy, maybe. I mean, when you're dealing with a circle that repels you at, just changing your angle a little bit drastically changes your jump, and so it's not quite so involved as all that in the end is not, but it has its own challenges. Melwest, in a pretty boring stage, a bit of waiting for this block, has a pretty healthy lead over the other players, though certainly has some ground to make up due to those nice sequence there, cutting it pretty close, doing a nice job of baiting the chain chomps high and then ducking low. But yeah, after the first two games and the deaths in Cuphead and Story About My Uncle, Melwest needs this kind of performance to come back, and it looks like he is doing it.
That gun, that fast shooting, auto aiming gun, he killed so many. I don't remember. Ash is the name of the game. Well, so many lives of so many gameplay and so many playthroughs of The End is Nigh. That single gun is super scary. But no problem for Melwest that managed to pass through that level super quickly and gets to the final part of the speedrun, the final, the third way, starting from the split. Let's start with the hollows. A nice shiny, with those shiny blue head that you bounce off. The enemies are less scary, and it's more about like puzzling your way through the levels and dodging the moving parts rather than precise platforming. It's a little change of pace, and it's probably the easiest of the 6 levels after the 6 worlds after the splits, once you know how to navigate those levels.
It helps if you totally crank the gamma and the dark spots become not so dark. I was watching Mel West's PB and was pretty surprised that I could see all of the moving pieces perfectly clearly, no matter where he was in the level on our stream today. You can see the top right is pretty dark here on the map, but yeah, there is you can do that. We'll see that again in Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, that's true.
Getting around some black, but there are some parts in Donkey Kong Country where you absolutely cannot do that. It is pitch black. But yeah, it's just Mel West running the show here. I say as he dies 3-4 times.
Yep.
5. What's up? What are you doing? All right, there we go. He just wants to get on this cycle, and if he's not interested in waiting and then trying to improvise all of the cycles afterwards, it's worth it to just make sure he gets started on the right foot.
And we get to Golgotha, the principal feature, if we're not talking about that bright red that is pretty blinding. The principal element of gameplay here are those chain chomps, if we can call that, like those enemies that move towards you if you are close enough to trigger them, and they move in a straight line, and they have a pretty big hitbox, and you have to know how to bait them correctly. It's certainly scary, but if you barely make the correct jump, like triggering the enemy at the correct time, and then your trajectory barely makes it on top of them, like we've seen Mel West just do at the past level, it works fine, but it is tricky. It is certainly not the easiest, and yeah, it's all about those moving elements, few enemies to deal with, and some precise platforming. It's all good.
Sadly, it gets shot once by that gun, but then it gets through afterwards. A-OK. Zoth actually a little bit ahead of Devil Tifa. Actually, they're in the same level now, but it's
yeah,
they're very close.
And Mel West gets to those spikes. They have a set cycle, and you have to know when to land. And that level, wow, that strat by Mel West was crazy. I don't know how. Didn't even know that was possible. That level is so hard. You have to get the correct timing, the correct jumps. We'll see how well Devil Tifa and Zoth go through that level, but that Golgotha 14 was stellar from Mel West.
Yeah, he is doing fantastic, especially after things really did not go well in I mean, they didn't go great in Cuphead, and they really didn't go well in Story About My Uncle. Really kind of got to him, and to come back strong on The End Is Nigh bodes really well for Mel West going forward in this tournament, as he's takes a death in kind of the easiest part of Golgotha right at the end here. Is going for a ledge grab here. You can, even when spikes are on top, you can still grab the ledge on the side, and he wants that ledge. It's a little faster than the ledge below it, but he'll have to settle with the one below it as he gets the final piece, goes back and assembles his friend.
Very nice. We made a friend, and Mel West probably will maybe take the crown, the comeback crown, because I was saying how good Devil Tifa was, how at coming back when found in a tough spot in a tourney. But Mel West shows that you practiced a lot those 10 games, and he's very practiced on The End Is Nigh, and we see Skunkoff stream for the first time of this tournament. Skunkoff currently in first place with 380 points. And at the end of Golgotha here, a bit behind everyone else, ahead of Sablier. Sablier is still right before Sablier will start Golgotha just after that level, if he manages to fall through those crumbling blocks there. And Zoff makes his friend also, and we get Cute Shadow. We did not see Brother Main, and I'm not so surprised. That probably means Brother Main is already done. Brother Main, The End is Nigh is one of the strongest games, so it's not too surprising, but it's going to bode very well for that runner, for the overall leaderboard and ranking for that tournament.
I was wondering how Skunkoff was going to do at this game. The PB on the leaderboard is not quite there with the top players like it was in the previous 2 games. But Skunkoff just seemed to be playing close to his best, whereas the competition otherwise that we had on stream kind of wasn't in a lot of ways. So Skunkoff at his best compared to a Devil Tifa or Melwest who is struggling seemed like it could be enough to compete. So earned a lead here and is doing his best to hold on to it, trying to grab as many points as he can. In the End is Nigh. I don't think we'll see a placement. I think Brother Main for sure is going to jump into first, but I don't know if this is where we might see someone else take top 2, or if maybe that will happen later, or maybe it won't happen at all. We'll have to see. But for now, Skunkoff is almost done. Vlad is just assembling his friend pretty much right after we got him on screen. So good that we got that finish. Cute Shadow is in the machine, so has certainly got a ways to go, because I assume the players are all following the same route. So I don't think this is a route difference situation, though it would be pretty close if it was.
I don't know. We asked the runner if that was possible to go through the same order, but sometimes it happened to me, and I would totally understand if it happened to a runner during a tourney. You totally go the wrong way in the split. Like, you are convinced you've done the machine, when actually you've never gone through the level. And sometimes it will happen, and the runners go through the levels, the world in a different order. Doesn't matter too much. We see Sablier on that Golgotha 14 screen, where he barely makes it there. He was right behind the Champ. Makes it alive. Oh my god. And this is Golgotha 14 is where Golgotha is the hardest, and then you just have a couple of screens moving with those moving blocks that tries to crush you, and then it's all over. So Vlad is done with the game. We have the mid-game cutscene there, where the Earth is actually destroyed twice during the the game, and it's the go through. If you've never played the End is Nigh, I totally recommend. If you like that type of game, and for just the overall experience of precise platforming, it's pretty solid. Sablier gets the corpse. His friend is going to be able to make a nice little home, a nice little... Okay, is it done? I don't know.
Is it little...
It didn't have the cutscene.
I've never seen it be put together piece by piece like that before. It was always just all at once.
I assume he... Oh, maybe he glitched the game, because you can soft lock the game after you put the friend all together. If you die at the wrong time. So maybe that's what happened. But we've seen Sablier go through the entire level, the entire game, and put all this piece together. So I assume it does work for him. And we see actually Vlad and Skunkoff getting ready on the next game. It's going to be Spectrable, and it's going to be very different from everything you've probably seen today, because the game is crazy. The game is crazy, that's it. It's a fun physics game. But before that, Cute Shadow still has a minute and a half to go through the machine. Is right at the end. We see just the quarter top left of the screen. I feel like maybe he has change the resolution or something. So we have to do a guesswork of what's happening on the second half of the screen.
So we're back to the split, which that seemed early, right? There should be more. I mean, okay, well, definitely Golgotha has not been completed, so we'll be struggling to finish under the cutoff, I think.
Cute Shadow has a 28 on the Andy's Night, submitted actually yesterday. So yeah, it's just a matter of like not having such a good run. He practiced the game fairly recently, and sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not going to work so well. That's why you have to practice, and that's why we put on so many tournaments for the runners to be able to practice in a race setting, because it's ever slightly so different to run when in a race, in an official race, in a tourney. If you've ever run on speed gaming, you probably know what I'm talking about, like knowing that there is something to win or to lose at the end of the run. It's so always like that extra pressure you have to deal with. So it's very nice to see the runner getting there. And yeah, we're going to cut through and go directly to the current ranking. Obviously, we have to wait for the Cute Shadow's time, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to put a time on the Andy's Night.
Yeah, the way things were going, it was going to be pretty close, but unlikely. So not going to earn the points for Andy's Night, and is pretty much going to kill Cute Shadow's hopes of making it to next week's tournament to play for one of those top 2 spots. But there's UD is still, it's a pretty long process. There will be more opportunities for Cute Shadow and lots of other players who haven't even competed in this tournament to come out and compete for those other spots in the grand final and ultimate final. And yeah, that'll be good to see. But for now, we can see Brother Main has a firm grip on the top spot. My goodness, this is 49 points ahead of second place, which is Skunkov, who holds on to this, barely, but holds on to this number 2 position. Devil Tifa knocking on the door, 2 points back. And Mel West also making a charge and making an attempt to open up the gap between 4th and 5th a little bit. This is the really important part. The top 4 are going to qualify for next week's tournament, and that's where you want to be. So Mel West 24 points ahead of Zof with this 4th and 5th gap. Sablier with a pretty weak The End Is Nigh has dropped back quite a ways. We'll have to really do something special to try to challenge the top 4 through Spectra Ball and DK here.
Yeah, the top 4 stays Brother Main, Skunkov, Devil Tifa, and Mel West. Once again, if you just join us today, we are playing through the 5 game you see here: Cuphead, A Story About Man Called The End Is Nice, Spectra Ball, and DKC. Back to back with the strong and tough to beat time limit. On The End Is Night, it was 30 minutes. If you don't make it in time, we just cut you and you get 0 points for that game. On Spectra Ball, it's actually 13 minutes, I think, or maybe it's 15 or something like that. I don't remember. Yeah, it's 15 minutes, sorry. And on DKC, it's 50 minutes or 49. So it's still like it's some good times for those games. So you have to be fairly practiced to get on those on that leaderboard. And today we have only 8 runners. Those are the top 8 from the past Saturday, and only the top 4 are going to qualify for next Saturday. So it's intense, and we have already like 2 spots for the grand finals for that UD. The grand finals are going to take place in the 13th and 14th of October. So still a lot of time for the other runners to join the top 2 of the July tournament. But obviously it's not done yet. We don't even know if Brother Main, Skunkov, Devil Tifa, and Mel West will remain on the top 4. Skunkov might stay there, but he's not. Like Zof is 4th on the leaderboard and Sablier is 10th. So theoretically, they are like very practiced and very good, and they could come back. But Zof losing ground, losing 9 points compared to the 4th place where Mel West stands since the beginning. It's tough, and the only inversion in ranking since Cuphead is actually Brother Main taking the lead after the end is nigh, and Skunkov falling down 60 points, almost 60 points, 53 points, 54 points compared to Skunkov, which is a lot. And yeah, the lead of Brother Main on the end is nigh is obviously very good to have on those tournaments. And Spectrable, as I was mentioning just earlier, is a weird game.
Yeah, this is it's a ball game in the mystery tournament circuits where players go into games totally blind that they've never played before and try to race them. They have what they call a ball game, which is just any game where you roll a ball around, and there's something about it that works well for that format, where it's a different kind of gameplay. So you're guaranteed that your players are going to be on an even playing field, because almost no one has experience with this weird sort of gameplay setup. And so it was a similar situation for UD competitors today. Well, maybe not today. They've obviously had time to practice for today, but when it was first announced, it was game number 4, so that was 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks ago, I believe. Yeah, it's definitely something different. You've got a double jump, so that's what kind of differentiates it from other ball games. Not that there's many, and not that you probably know of them, but they're out there. It's basically, there's not the crazy stuff. If you've seen speedruns of, like, say, Marble Blast Gold, which were fantastic watches back on SDA, when that was kind of the premier place to go to watch speedruns. They had those that were fun to watch. Marble Madness certainly has its fair share of runners. This game is it doesn't have any physics breaking. You don't, like, get wedged between two walls and it goes and then spits you out way too fast. There's not quite things like that. If that does happen, it's usually you're gonna die because it was a glitch. Yeah, it's just kind of just solid use of the existing mechanics that the players are going to be using here. You can see them practicing, showing off all kinds of different levels, and they're going to have some time here to practice and do some things, because we're going to take a bit of a break. It's a long day for the players, and they've definitely been pushed a little bit.
Yeah, so last week we didn't go through a break because the runners didn't ask for it. We are going to take a break right now and come back to after in 10 minutes. So that's at 7:30 p.m. if you're in Europe. So that's like noon and 30 minutes if you're in the East Coast. Thanks for joining us. If it's so early on a Saturday, just before your lunch. But yeah, let's take a break. The runner's been pushed, as you said, on Spectrable, on Cuphead, A Story About Miracle, and The End Is Nigh. We still have 2 games to go through. Spectrable is probably going to be tough for some runners because you have some weird glitches, elements. Sometimes you get into the ground and it doesn't work at all. You cannot jump anymore. Sometimes you have some weird physics interactions you didn't take it into account and it doesn't go so well. So giving the runners a few minutes to practice is going to be very nice for them. And yeah, we'll be back in about 10 minutes. And we're back with the runners getting ready, skipping practice, or they took the break to, do something else, relax their hands, I guess, take the rest your eyes, whatever, walk for a little bit, grab a glass of water. And it's back to that ball game you were describing, that weird genre. You have to get a good grasp onto how the physics work, and sometimes it's pretty weird and sometimes it goes well.
That's the speed run.
Yeah.
You roll the ball into the wall, and sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't, and that's just how it goes. That's how it feels.
That's my experience with the game, to be honest.
Right. Yeah.
It's actually, when you're practiced enough, and when you are at world record level like Devil Tifa, it's way more consistent than that, obviously. But it's still one of those games that gets the players nervous, because if the game doesn't want to react correctly, pretty much, it's almost up to the game. It's pretty hard to adjust to mistakes, and sometimes it's just a guesswork. So Brother Main leads with 568 points. Skunkoff is in second position with 519, 2 points ahead of Devil Tifa in third place with 517. Then you have like a gentle gap of about 20 points, and Melwest sits at the fourth place. Zoff follows 24 points behind at 470, and Sablier is in sixth place with 418. Zoff and Sablier need to get into top 4. It's going to be tough. There's a fight to put, but it's possible. But it's going to be, obviously, taking the spot of someone else. And Borderman, Skunkoff, Devil Tifa, and Melwest have to fight back to stay on the top 4 to qualify for next Saturday and Sunday. So it's a difficult position to be in, especially when you're fourth and you're Melwest. And Melwest doesn't like Spectrable too much. On the other hand, when you're Sablier, Sablier told on the UD Discord that he was far behind his objectives and he did his goals, and he wanted to do better on the next 2 games. But as I said early in the stream, he's very good at DKC. So if he manages to get a good Spectrable, it's going to go smoothly for him, maybe on the 5th games today. So Spectrable started. You see those nice bounces and those double jump you can make. You have you cannot chain the double jump. On the bottom left corner you have that cooldown, and you have to wait for a little bit to the double jump to recharge, and then it's all about knowing what jump you can do, and Devil Tifa barely making it. And Sablier is actually in the lead right now after a minute, 40 seconds on the first level.
Yeah, this first level is pretty straightforward. But there's a pretty smooth ramp. I mean, there's lots of smooth ramps in this game, but in difficulty, so expect the first level is going to be easy, and it's gonna get harder and harder as we go. We're gonna do some unintended stuff. Finally, Sablier missing the jump here. You need to be pretty spot on with your double jump to get enough height to get up here. And but the big skip is really when we turn to the right here and just go sailing off into the distance. The double jump, you'd be surprised just how much it can extend your jump when you wait long enough to use it. And then we get to this pyramid, which is you need to do some pretty weird stuff to get the game to kick your ball up on top of these ledges, and looks like Sablier missed it, so it's actually all the way back to the start here because there's no close checkpoint for that.
Yeah, that hurts. He tried to go back to the ramp to get some more height. He did miss his double jump to get onto the pyramid, and sadly it did not make it. And yeah, that game can be brutal like that. And Melwest took the lead, missing the jump here to grab him to the rails to get to the first switch. There's a door to open, and Zoff makes it pretty easily. You restart from checkpoint, the door stays open, and then you make it onto those arrows, and if you jump onto them, not touching the ground, you have less friction, and you can cut the entire level. Like, we did not see anything from that level at all because of that arrow placement, that boost placement. Just allows you to skip through the entire level. And you get, with Melwest and Zoff neck to neck on the start of this third level here, with Melwest taking the lead after Zoff fails that jump.
Sablier is still stuck on this pyramid, has finally climbed up, but has dropped back quite a ways very quickly. And this is a punishing game. This is not the kind of game where you can, make these mistakes and not get hurt for it. This is a short game, so each point is 3 seconds. So 1 death, 2 death, 3 deaths will very quickly start to add up to 3, 4, 10 points.
Yeah, actually,
it's a big deal.
Zoff and Melwest were like neck to neck at the start of the level with a big lead, and now they died a couple of times, and each time you die on that snowy level you have to go back to the beginning. So Devil Tifa took the lead on that square climb where you have to be very wary of your turns on those right angles, and then finally gets a checkpoint and gets the second and later part of the level. So Devil Tifa making a huge swing here, and yeah, Spectrable we're going to cost a lot of points if you get stuck on the start of the level like Melwest is doing right now, or Zoff, to be fair. And Zoff and Melwest are currently 4th and 5th, so they have to like take some distance between each other. Someone has to take the lead, or Melwest with his 20 points lead compared to Zoff is going to make it in 4th place and get qualified for the next week. So Zoff doesn't want that and has to work for it, obviously.
I don't know what happened to Melwest's speed approaching this right here, that ramp, but he just lost it all and had to go all the way back to the start, whereas Zoff has finally broken free and hit a checkpoint as well. So the lead has opened up a little bit. Looks like one more try was all Melwest needed, and Zoff misses the jump up to not quite the exit, but very close. So as soon as I pointed out that this gap had opened up, it is starting to close already. But the gap between both of them and Devil Tifa remains wide open. Devil Tifa is halfway through the Sky Ruins stage, and this is kind of to be expected. Devil Tifa, record holder in this game. Brother Mean can give him a run for his money, and maybe he is off stream racing somewhere. But this is one of the games with the biggest point advantage for one of our players, and it is going the way of Devil Tifa.
Yeah, so Devil Tifa may swing to 1st or 2nd place there, and not to be seen on DKC, or Skunkoff and Brother Main might have enough of a lead to make some ground. Devil Tifa has made some mistakes here and there, had to restart, but since the snowy peaks started, it all goes well. We are getting to the towering mountain. You have a lot of skips and a lot of rocks to bounce off in that level, especially at the start here. Devil Tifa makes it nicely. Zoff not maybe going for the skip here. That's the skip Devil Tifa missed. You don't want to hit the railing on the next platform. You want to go past, and very nice from the Zoff. Doesn't land where he wanted to though, and he's back to the checkpoint, which was miles away. Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, when he went flying off and then opened up that menu, I was like, oh, he hit a checkpoint, he's gonna reset, and I can talk about how that's a really useful strategy in this game, but he didn't hit the checkpoint, so that is a major time loss for Zoff. Melwest is doing really well in the Sky Ruins stage, has jumped into 2nd of our racers on stream, and Sablier has now pretty much caught up to Zoff and is very close to both of them. Oh, went for the really fun strat of riding the fans to go through that bottom route, and almost made it work. 2nd time around is going to make it work.
Yeah,
nice
very
job.
nice. And Devil Tifa here tries to get that skip. You have to land your double jump with some momentum. Gets it on the second try. And double jump allows to skip a lot of switches. You can like go past some doors. It's not the most secured games like regarding skips. The game doesn't care too much about what you do. It's all about finding your ways, which is always interesting in a speedrun. But now that the route is all done and polished, it's all about execution, and that can get tricky. But yeah, that nice jump on that TNT block, and the Ultifa got up there. And the end of the Towering Mountain, where we are getting there, is very interesting. You have some nice jumps to get to the final rails. Oh, I was scared there, but he made it. The double jump seems to be very useful. Barely touching that TNT crate. And using that spring that sending flies. And
well, he already used the double jump, so I was about to take that opportunity to say, look at how far the double jump can carry you on this, because normally you go all the way to that second ramp. But he burned it really early. I'm not sure if he didn't like his angle or his speed or something, but he made an adjustment there, and it worked. He did not fall off, so hats off.
Okay. Final level, the space construct. You are going through a weird construction in space where the laws of gravity applies for some reason, and you use those elevators, and it's you have like 3 skips in a row right off the bat, and after you get to that elevator here, you teleport to that checkpoint, and here you have like a series of jump that the Ultima is not going for. He's actually electing to use the crate here to jump and go normally through the level. And then here you want to be able to gain as much vertical and horizontal speed to get to that platform we saw a little bit further. It's very tricky, and I don't know if anyone got it consistent yet or not. Apparently Tifa doesn't, the old Tifa doesn't, and has to go the long way around.
Into this curly Q spiral thing. Really good job of cutting the corners on the S turns with the magnet beams that will pull you or push you off the track. And now we've got this really big skip. No. It is pretty hard to escape from this loop-de-loop. It's got some really grippy edges that it just doesn't want to let you roll off the side. But that is the goal here. That boost gives you a ton of speed, and so if you can escape and aim off to the left, you can get all the way onto the tower in the background, and it's gonna quick switch from background to foreground very quickly. How
even
much
too
speed
quickly
did he have? I've never seen someone go so fast off that loop, and just like that, we're now tied. Mel West and Devil Tifa.
Devil Tifa neither. Why is nobody able to escape that loop here? It gives a lot of time for Zoff and Sablier to catch up, but yeah, sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't, and that's especially true. Look at Devil Tifa, he's overshooting like
he's just
crazy.
Watching it go. And he doesn't want to let it go, accept his fate, but he should. He's losing time.
Yeah, and Melways finally makes it and is going to catch up with Devil Tifa nicely. Why? Oh, it was too short. Okay, that's where you see that the runner is very experienced with the game. He knew exactly leaving the platform that he didn't have the speed he wanted, and does that again. I feel like he's braking a little bit on the final ledge here. I don't know, and then landing correctly here can be very tricky because that final platform is at a slight angle just to throw your marks off, but it makes it nicely with the final double jump, and finishes the game in first place. From what we see, we don't know where Skunkoff or Bothermain are at.
Man, that was a heck of a wild ride. That's kind of what you're in for with Spectre Ball. Devil Tifa is showing me parts of the level that I don't think I've seen before.
And Skunkoff is already done. Oh my god.
Wow. So he is going to be holding on to that number 2 spot. I don't think Mel West picked up enough points to challenge him, and he certainly finished ahead of Devil Tifa, who is the one who's just 2 points back, really knocking on the door. So this is really big for Skunkoff. This was one of a couple games that we're gonna, we're just going off of PBs. We're gonna be weaknesses for him, and he, it took a pretty big hit on the end is nigh, but he kind of staunched the bleeding there. And then this is a really solid Spectre Ball run that is gonna really keep him in the top 4 and put him in a great position going into the final race.
Yeah, so the Ultifa is finally done, but yeah, everybody is stuck there. Zoff and Vlad are having trouble escaping that loop, obviously. It's pretty tough, and yeah, it's fairly inconsistent. Yeah, Zoff makes it. I'll aim for the top of the platform here, the bounce on the antenna to stop him reaching the checkpoint, and yeah, Zoff needs that because Zoff is currently on the 5th spot, and finishing as fast as possible behind Mel West and Devil Tifa is mandatory. But the timer goes very fast on Spectrable. It's a point per 3 seconds, so that's just a huge time loss for a lot of runners here.
In fact, we're at the 14-minute mark, so we're getting pretty close to a cutoff, which is pretty surprising. Zoff really wants to finish this out. Everyone else is in the space construct stage at various points. This final platform is so mean trying to get on.
Yeah.
It's like it's tilted at a weird angle. It's a gigantic jump, but he does make it. Zoff is going to finish with a 14 mid 20.
Yep, very nice. And being able to finish that game is enough, I feel like, for your mental health. But I hope Sablier is going to be able to make it. Has an interesting take on the camera angle he uses to escape the loop. Vlad is going to make it if he lands on the platform using that double jump fairly early and nice. Sablier makes it out of the loop. Will be not too high, so that's very... You want to be... Oh, and exit the platform here without taking the checkpoint. This is scary,
Right.
because if he misses... And no, we're not going to make it because the cutoff was already there.
Oh my goodness.
Maybe Sablier just barely had time to finish, I do hope. But that's the... that's what the cutoff does. And Brother Main with 216 points. Oh my god, just stomping the competition there. Like, he could almost skip DKC entirely and still qualify.
Wow. And only across, 5 games, not 10, so
Yeah.
man. That is... Brother Main is doing absolutely fantastic. And it's not so much that... I mean, he's certainly doing extremely well, but the other players they're just not. Like, compared to... Obviously, you're not going to match your PB the way that you... when you do a race, but in the tournaments we've done up till now, there's a certain sort of margin that you kind of expect players to get to compared to their PBs, and they've generally done a really good job of getting close to those numbers. And today has not been that case. They've seen a lot of mistakes from a lot of strong players, finishing well off of their PBs, and basically Brother Main seems immune to whatever has affected all of these other players, has kept with these really strong, consistent times, and just look at the difference it's made over the course of 4 runs. Wow.
Yeah, over 180 on every game, when Mel West never broke the 180 mark, but made it over 150 on every single game. Everybody but Mel West and Brother Main had trouble on at least one game. Skunkoff failed on the end is nigh. Once again, he may certainly be very happy with his run, but it's just compared to the overall level. Like, every single runs from those runners are actually very good. They are talented and practiced runners, but yeah, compared to the runners that made it sub 25 minutes on the end is nice, Skunkov was not just there yet. The UD is still long, so he will make it eventually, but he had like a good success on Spectrable and takes back 17 points compared to Devil Tifa. Devil Tifa with a huge setback. That's almost 100 points behind PB. That's like almost 5 minutes behind PB on a game. So short. It's a big setback for Devil Tifa, and Devil Tifa is only 2 points ahead of Melwest now. Zoff is going to have big troubles making it back to the top 4, but DKC is probably going to be the most crucial game of the day, and it's going to start fairly soon, and we're going to see what's going to happen.
I just think about how different things could have been. Zoff got a 113, but his PB is over 200 points. It's a 212 for Spectre Ball. If he had been closer to 212 instead of 112, he would have been in second, right? He would be forcing Devil Tifa and Melwest into 4th and 5th. This was, you know, this could have been really wild. It is wild, but it's all balancing on the edge of a knife, and it's kind of making me a little anxious. There's one more race left before this is resolved, but you just never know when it comes to performing in a live race. When it starts to really matter, the nerves kick in, and it starts to test your ability to deal with those nerves in a way that, you know, maybe even coming out and competing in some of the fun tournaments doesn't. I don't know. Or maybe there's just something in the air in France or something that's just gotten this. I don't know. But
it's summertime. Some players are actually left
allergic
for vacation. Some players are allergic. Some players cannot stand the heat. I don't know. For Donkey Kong, though, Devil Tifa is our best runner for the day with a PB at 38 minutes, where Melwest is at 38.07, second best for today. Brother Main is 4th best with a 38.53, and then we have, like, it all dwindles down to Zoff, 4th best runner for today with a 41.24, and Skunkov is then next with a 43.16, and Sablier right behind him with a 43.47. So what should happen is comparing like the time difference. Skunkov should, if all the runners do exactly their PB, match their PB at the second, Skunkov will get to the 4th place, but still qualify. But careful, because Zoff has a better PB, and what's a likely scenario would be that Skunkov fails a little bit more than Zoff does, and actually, like, it's super close between 4th and 5, but Skunkov has almost like a 100 points lead, so that would mean that Skunkov does not make it in time, and I cannot hope that for runner. In his practice he has a 43 minutes, so he should be able to go sub 50, but it's tough. Anything can happen, and DKC is a tough game, as we see on screen right now. Lots of jumping, lots of rolling around, some glitches, and the category is actually all stages. So on some games we chose the easier category, and some games we didn't, and DKC is certainly one of the biggest beasts of the UD6.
Yeah, it's up there with Shovel Knight and Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. It's a pretty long run, and that alone means there is more to learn, but each of the stages is dense with tricks in a route, basically. There's the speedrun revolves around Diddy for the most part. He is faster than DK, and so, you know, obvious reasons you want to be Diddy. He's got the roll, and the roll has all kinds of mechanics that you can use and leverage in a speedrun. You obviously just go faster, just rolling for, you know, whenever, and you can jump out of it to make sure that you avoid the stop, the end of the roll. If you roll through an enemy, you gain increased speed. you can do things like release and repress Y to extend the roll, the extendo, and you can combine that with, if you extendo into another enemy, that will give you another speed boost. So these sorts of things chain together in some really crazy ways in certain levels. There's all kinds of there's some tricks, some really important tricks that you need to hit. Super jumps and jump rolls, and I don't think we'll see a super jump roll, but that is also a thing.
We've seen the one, and it's likely a lot of runners are trying to go for them, so we'll see. Let's not break the hopes right now. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't get punished in some cases for going for it. So even if it's like a frame perfect thing, that is pretty unreasonable to expect you to get it. You can at least try in a couple cases. So we'll see. There are some super jumps that I think players are going to do purely for safety, where it's not the fastest thing, but skipping over a level that is extremely difficult saves you time, in the sense that you didn't have to practice and learn that really difficult level, so you could put your time into practicing the other levels. And it also increases your consistency in a race, which it seems like a lot of players are having trouble with today. So I very rarely recommend going with a different strat than you've practiced before. But if a player was counting on not doing a super jump in a level, but knows the super jump, and they were struggling today, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to go for one. And for clarification, super jump just kind of lets you jump over a whole stage. We'll get there in a little bit, but for now we are off. We are Donkey. We don't want to be Donkey, so we free Diddy and lose Donkey immediately.
So they didn't lose Donkey. Actually, Melwest did. Zoff did, sorry, but Skunkoff, Melwest, and Devil Tifa are still racing with Donkey Kong following them, because it's that more safety. Zoff is actually still with Donkey also, my bad. Because you don't want to die. But Devil Tifa fails on the first level. What happened? And got the checkpoint, thankfully. And but yeah, that leads to my question: do you recommend, considering how well or bad it went today for some runners, to go for so the 99 lives trick on that level on World 2?
Maybe it's a grim acceptance of the goings on to do that, but I mean, a game over is really bad in this game, and it has been very shaky for a lot of players.
Yeah,
I might be the way to go, honestly.
Because, like, to recap, if you never played through Donkey Kong, you do not have any autosave between even worlds. If you don't go and see, I don't know, Candy Kong, that's her name.
I think she's the one, yeah.
She's the one that saves for you, like, if you go specifically, but that's a big detour. You don't want to save, but you don't want to game over, but you don't want to lose all your lives, and you have, like in Super Mario Brothers, the ability to gain a lot of lives if you bounce into an enemy over and over again, which is fairly nice, but that obviously takes time. But we've seen a lot of mishaps, let's say, on today's tournament, and DKC could be the most painful game to watch, like to witness a runner fails over and over again into, or maybe since it's the most difficult game probably from the for the entire UD for all the players, it's slightly safer practiced and safely practiced, and the runners don't go for the crazier strat. I don't know yet. We'll see when we get there, but we grab On Guard or best friend for the water levels. The water levels are super tricky, and you can go very fast when you have your swordfish friend.
Yeah, he obviously he just goes faster whenever he does this charge attack. It will hurt and kill enemies, and it also gives you some invincibility frames. So there are some cases where a well-timed in-guard charge will get you past a mincer or some other obstacle. But these underwater sections are very hard to optimize. It's the kind of thing where an intermediate level player, intermediate to advanced, which I guess is where I would put our players. It's you'll do the level that you think perfectly, and then wonder how the world record still gained 5 seconds on you in that level, and it's just due to all the ways you can cut corners and edge boost and all kinds of little things. But it seems like little things is not going to be the concern today. I think it's going to be the big things. I think it's going to be Don't Die, and beautiful synchronization between Melwest and Skunkoff coming out of Barrel Cannon Canyon.
Skunkoff took a death, Melwest took a death intentionally because he missed a barrel that makes you skip the entire second half of the level, allowing Skunkoff to catch back up with him. The Ultifa, Zoff, and Melwest and Skunkoff in the final boss. Zoff making it through the final level before the boss, final level of World 1 here, and we are getting to World 2 with Melwest in the lead with that nice little chaining of Diddy Kong just rolling through the enemies. That gives you so much speed if you chain your rolls correctly. You can extend your rolls if you release and press again Y at the correct timing, and if you know exactly when to jump and when to roll and when to extend, you can go crazy fast through the levels. And then we have the first minecart section that we actually are going to skip entirely, except for that final Kremlin you have to jump above, and it's all done here. Nice for Melwest.
Yeah, you don't see a whole lot of World 2. There's that first level that they're already done, the minecart Carnage, which just got skipped entirely, and one more to come in just a little bit. But for now, Melwest is in Bouncy Bonanza, followed very closely behind by Skunkoff and Devil Tifa. Zoth now joining them in this level as well. There's some cycles you can skip with these bees, but it is very tight. There's some stuff you can do that the players have been doing in these tight spaces, these crawl spaces, where if you just kind of jump into them, you can just kind of jump, and it lets you through at full speed. It can be a little weird. Some players might opt to roll into them and then jump out of the roll. That will make sure that you get in there. Though you get hung up on the wall a little bit while you're rolling, but it's pretty easy to do. That it's worth going for, but it's very hard to do very well, to do perfectly. So
like everything
little
in the
things.
game.
Right, pretty like everything in the game. Stop and go station, there's skipped pretty much entirely there, and onto the next one.
Okay, this is the level where in World 2 you can refill your lives, but Melwest is not going to go for that. He just go for no safety strat. He's confident he can finish the game with just the 5 lives he's started with, plus all the extra lives he's going to end with, collecting so many bananas and just balloons here and there. But it can be scary. And we saw that we took a glimpse at that super jump, so he lost Donkey on a slope and then got to the daycare barrel and got Donkey back, then lost Didi, jump onto a Kremlin and got an infinite jump that allows him to get to the hidden barrel on top of a level. That strategy, that glitch, we are going to see more of it, because if it does not propel you into a barrel, it can also just propel you above an entire level, which is not fast necessarily, but just very safe because you cannot die while you are infinite jumping.
Yeah, it's kind of like the P-Wing from Mario 3 that just lets you infinitely fly over a level. Your fly speed is not as fast as your run speed, but there are situations where it's worth it, either because there's some kind of weird auto-scroller part of the level that you're skipping, or some forced weight section, I guess, or it's because you are a newer runner or you're interested in competing in races and you would like the very easy, still sort of fast time in a lot of these stages. So There's some where I think we're going to see it, like we're going to see from Mel West here in Forest Frenzy, I think this is. Yeah, setting it up now.
Yeah, so we saw him losing Didi on that corner, and we saw the death animation of the character was super off. Like the character, instead of just walking off the ledge, jumped straight, like skyrocketed to the ceiling of the level. And when you have that, you know that the second character is in the correct state, and if you trigger the jump correctly by jumping onto the Kremlin, you are going to get that infinite jump that we see Melwest, blazing through that very slow level. You are supposed to grab onto ropes, dodge bees, then jump onto Nakis to get there. Plays it safe at the end of the level. Here was not sure he was where he was, so just hugged into a corner until he had his feet on the ground, so he could jump into the final Kremlin instead of just dying.
Yeah, it's you're holding the button to jump. Basically, you're doing one big jump in this sequence. So the top of your jump needs to be roughly halfway between where you started and the exit. So there's basically a visual cue for when you finally let go of the button, and you just hope that it's going to drop you down in the right place. But especially after all the stuff that's happened earlier in the competition, you can start to question those things. So was a little unsure. Skunkov held the button pretty long, actually came down right on top of the door, lost just a little bit of time, not coming down sooner and getting into the door, but that extra safety can be worth it. Mel West is showing off Espresso in this level. It is, I think it's slightly faster to skip Espresso, but it turns the stage very complicated. So none of the players have opted to learn it. It's just not worth it. It's like a second or two in exchange for learning a very, very difficult stage. So everyone has pretty much opted for Espresso here.
Espresso looks so fast as well. I was like convinced it was actually faster to go with Espresso here. But I guess with the roll and extendos, and so you can grab so much speed with Didi that it makes sense. But we saw Mel West, instead of starting the level here, went back using the plane to Bold 1 and wrong warp into the level, into the middle of the level, because we specified you have to finish all the level, but we never said that you had to enter all the levels. So the runners actually take advantage of that loophole into the category book and the rule book of the DKC speedruns. And they are all doing that because it's actually way faster, and no one even bothered learning the game here, but the level here. But Mel West is in a tricky spot, lost on guard on those tiny fish sharks, I guess, and lost Didi trying to get on guard back, which is never very good. Probably wanted that barrel, so turned back, took the fish to the shark to the face, lost on guard, got it back again, and that's why your on guard is very good in the water levels. It's faster and way safer to use on guard, so it's very nice. And lost on guard right at the exit, so it didn't matter anyway.
Yeah, players have been using/abusing the ability to re-grab one of your animal buddies after they escape for the extra hit buffer. It's worked very well. Double Tifa managing to grab on guard on the way up after losing him. This actually doesn't happen very often, so it's pretty lucky. Loses him there, but he lets him go because the exit is right there. I don't know if it would have been faster to re-grab him for that last little bit, but underwater section's done now for Double Tifa Zof and Mel West. No, Zof is just getting there, yep. And Skunkov done now as well.
Skunkov, we can see on his screen, he's ahead of his PB. Which is always very nice for confidence boost. He is currently in second place, so if he keeps doing so well, he will score a big hit on the Mel West and Double Tifa's confidence, I guess, because they probably expected to get second and first place And actually Brother Main and Skunkov did way better at learning and practicing all the 5 games for today. You can see those weird momentum you can get if you hug to a metal barrel onto a slope and jumping. Melwest abusing those mechanics, very nice. And you see the extendos onto the neckies and slipped.
Ice physics are a thing. He ducked and was, you know, he was like, I got it, but he had just the slightest amount of backspin basically on Diddy and just barely slept off the edge, which is a shame after executing so well on the beginning of the stage with the barrel boosts.
He did not lose too much time, which is okay. The checkpoint was just before. But it's always sad because DKC is one of those games where you want to do precisely good everywhere. You do it, like every single optimization lead to another optimization where you are going to have a lot of speed and you are going to be able to go even faster. And as soon as you kill your momentum, as soon as you take a hit or lose a life, you're going to lose a lot of time you don't want to lose. Mel was grabbing that barrel. We barely see. It's a blue barrel colored in the same blue that as the background ice. And those drops that, if you don't understand why he's not climbing, it's because those are made of ice, I guess, and they're so slippery you have to either jump back and forth from one rope to another, or do those weird jumps that are quite precise actually to be able to climb a single rope on.
Yeah, doing those jumps is very difficult. Doing them off screen as well is also very difficult. Melwest lost Espresso and absolutely cannot lose Espresso in this level. Tried to grab him. I don't even know where he was there, but he went for it and it didn't really work out. So yeah, this level is incredibly long. Losing Espresso is going to cost you, I don't know, like a minute or something. It's really bad. So
probably
could not tolerate losing him. Had to go back and at least try to get him. And it didn't work out, but now we see that Devil Tifa is kind of right there with Melwest in the top 2.
Yeah, it's Espresso is faster, it's safer, but it shows how tiny a 4x3 screen is. Like, you go so fast, it's you have to know exactly what's happening next, what's waiting for you. You cannot rely on visual cues at all. You have to remember all the jumps, knowing how many steps you have to take. It's you know, you don't let go either of jump or of Y for to run or right to go to the right direction, but your jump button has to be on spot on. And yeah, about the button configuration for DKC, this is an early NES game and you have a lot of interaction, and coming from the NES back in like early 90s, I guess Rare did not take into account that the SNES controller had so many phase buttons, and you have like only 2 buttons in DKC for so many action. It's Y for everything, to roll, to run, to grab onto barrels, to it's crazy, and it's all about that Y button you have to press precisely numerous times, and it's completely insane if you just take a step back and consider how the SNES controller looks.
Yeah, there's cases too where like you want to run or roll past a barrel, but the same button to pick it up is fine to those things. So you have to end up doing like weird jumps and things to avoid picking up barrels on your route.
Sorry.
Ooh, that is a bad death to take. Skunkov and really needs to hold on. DKC is not his strong suit compared to the other 3, but he's earned enough points that even a fair run from him will keep him in this top 4. And I think he can do it. So he can take 1 or 2 of those, but he definitely needs to hold on.
Yeah, he should be fine, but if he doesn't beat DKC in time, first that would be very disappointing because obviously he practiced the game a lot. but also that would mean that the qualification for next week is not assured anymore. And but yeah, you want to be able to do as good as you can on any setting, and obviously he knows that he's streamed on Speed Gaming and on Ultime Decathlon, and we have even a Russian restream, so he knows a lot of people are watching him run, and he wants to do as well as he knows how. Zoff he's having a difficult tourney. He's a good runner, but did not make it as well as he wanted to for today. I don't know how well they prepared, to be honest, for today. They prepared very well for next week, and maybe it was complicated to go back to 5 other games in a single week to practice for today. I feel like something happened relative to their motivation for today's tourney.
Yeah, maybe they were there were some, like, I don't know why Zof wouldn't expect to make the top 8, but you know, maybe some of the players didn't expect to get to this top 8, so they were focusing very hard on the first 5 and really weren't prepared to put in the effort on the other 5 to bone up and make sure that they were ready to come strong today. There's, you know, definitely something happened, because across the board, kind of unless your name's Brother Main, it's basically been kind of underperformance from the players today, which is, you know, regardless of why it happened, I think it's important to look at how they're handling it and how they're, you know, not stopping them from going for stuff like that tire roll that Mel West just did. Those are not easy. The timing is a little precise, and if you don't get it, you're definitely going into a pit. So to go for it that late in the stage, it's pretty good. It says something about where Mel West is at mentally.
Yeah, he saved just before that level, because he knows the rope bridge is a tough one, and he does not want. He wants to. He knows he needs to beat the game in under 50 minutes. So he was like the math were done where he was like, okay, I know even if I lose 20 seconds to saving, I will be able to beat the game, and if I die, it's going to be worth it. And then he went to the rope bridge level and was like, but you know what, I will go for everything now, because I'm that good anyway. And yeah, once again, we saw some underperformances from the runner, but it is very tough. Like, the UD is certainly super difficult. Learning 10 speedruns, racing them, knowing your limits because you don't want to burn out learning and grinding games. And Mel West almost gave up on a story about my uncle, but finally didn't. And yeah, it's they're doing like a very good job at actually like keeping it up, even though they probably know it didn't go so well and that maybe didn't de-rest or practice so enough. And on DKC so far, it's like we didn't see any underperformance. Actually, they are doing very well. We see the runners die here and there, but that's expected on DKC.
Yeah, this is a super tough game. I definitely think even from the top runners, a deathless run is the goal, but I wouldn't say that it's to be expected. Yeah, I would, and you know, it depends on where you die. That can, you know, drastically affect your final time. So far it hasn't been so bad. We definitely saw Skunkoff take a pretty nasty one, as he takes one again just now. Not sure how bad that one is gonna. Okay, that was the checkpoint that he got right before, so he is gonna be okay on that one. Like I said, that was 10 seconds or something. If it leads to a game over, it's a lot more than 10 seconds. So there is that sort of compounding of errors to consider. I don't want to consider game overs happening to any of our runners, but it is a sad reality that I'm sure players are at least a little bit worried about.
Yeah, as Skunkov died, I took a peek at how many lives they had left. Oh, and Mel West does not make it quite. Oh, that, like, it's at least the second or the third time we see Melwest falling into a pit like by a pixel off the ledge here, and that breaks my heart because the game it has aged well, but in all regards, but hitboxes. Like sometimes you will get some weird feedback. You were on the platform, and the game actually will push you off the platform, and the enemies have weird hitboxes, and even like DK that follows along with Diddy Kong sometimes just float in the air. You can see that there are like tiny margin of errors on hitboxes, and that's probably what gets the runners from time to time. But yeah, I was taking a peek at how many extra lives they all had, and they are at about 10 extra lives, so it's all good. They didn't have at all to worry about game over. Apparently it's all going well for them.
Devil Thief is going to be the first one into Poison Pond. It is most of the water levels so far have been very hard to optimize, but otherwise have been relatively safe in terms of dying. But this one actually has its fair share of dangers, especially if you're doing what Devil Thief is doing with On Guard here, trying to use the invincibility frames of the charge to get past some of these mincers. We'll see some more of it later on, I'm pretty sure.
Ooh, very nice here. Yeah, the Buck has lots of iframes when you go to that allows you to go through the mincers, and he makes some very close calls here. He loses On Guard right at the end of the level, like and getting it back. Very nice. Good level. Melwest is right behind them.
That's a bit early to lose On Guard, though. He does not want to give him up, and now he's not sure where he is or if he even can get him back, so it looks like he's going to be moving on without him.
Yeah, Didi looked like someone that lost his dog in the park, and like, where's Angard? Please come back, I need you. And sadly, and Devil Thief, yeah, with a very nice looking glitch, probably the best looking glitch in the entire UD6 selection, where you roll in infinitely in the air. So you trigger that glitch by entering the cart without jumping, and the game gets you in that weird state where the game thinks you still are in the on the ground, even though you are in the air, and it stops at the middle of the game here, the level here. So you have to go back to entering those minecarts and jumping.
I think it might be like if you get to the end, because you're in that you're in that weird state, you can't actually trigger the end of the level, but that doesn't really make sense because you'd probably get in a later minecart, so I take that back. But it is really cool. You can go for that's the jump roll, and then you've got the super jumps where you jump really high, and you can actually combine those things for a super jump roll that I think it's actually possible in this stage. Blackout Basement, incredibly difficult stage. You can see it just gets pitch black, and you're working with memory. So this is the kind of thing where a newer player like our players are. I mean, they've had more and more time to learn this game, but in the grand scheme of things, they are still very new to all of these games, and memorization is definitely one of the things that just takes time to come. So Devil Thief is doing a fantastic job of navigating this stage in the dark, showing no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, I'm amazed how good those runners are at remembering all that stuff. When I'm learning a speedrun, usually, even if I learn something, I will immediately forget about it until I relearn about it later on, and so on and so forth, until I remember everything. But Melwest, Devil Thief, and Skunkoff and Brothermain are the kind of runners you tell them once about a trick and they will never forget about it. And it's like that level in the dark, it's Devil Thief never stopped. I feel like they didn't even take a single second to wait for the light to come back, and it's amazing.
It's definitely the kind of thing where there's two ways you either do it. If you'd either do it the way Devil Thief did it, where you never stop, and then you just count on your consistency through the stage to have the lights on and off at the right times, and so you know when you need to visualize where platforms are going to be in the dark, and you know which ones you're going to be able to see. If you start to improvise, then the parts you've memorized you're going to be able to see, and the parts you haven't memorized you're not going to be able to see, and that can lead to trouble. So you kind of got to go all in one way or the other. Either play it safe and see where you go as you need to, or go all out and just keep your consistency up in the level. Melwest had a very strong stage, but did start hesitating towards the end, did start waiting for the lights and seeing where he needed to place these jumps.
Skunkov starts with the infinite roll glitch, and I'm keeping an eye on Devil Tifa to see if they're going to go for the infinite roll. And yeah, they went for it, but did not set it up correctly, I feel like, but did not get it. It's a frame perfect input on the Y button. Y does everything, as you know it, and it is a tough one. And if I remember correctly, I've seen the runners share another strat, like another spot where you can, in this specific level, try to go for a jump roll. Wonder if that's something they've practiced or not.
I guess we'll see in just a little bit. We've got Brother Main in the bottom right corner is on Tanked Up Trouble, I think this is. No, that's one of the levels. This is just boss drum.
Yeah, I don't remember. Something about a drum, and it's like the most underwhelming boss in a single platformer I've ever seen. You just do a couple of jumps and it dies by itself. It's not the most interesting boss fight, but we get Devil Tifa, Melwest, Brother Main all together on the same very long level. If Brother Main or Melwest gets the jump roll, they might be able to get back at Devil Tifa. They're already done, and there's a couple of noties, and yeah, they're at the exit already. I do hope we see an attempt at the jump roll from Melwest and Brother Main, but that level is very long, and you can understand why being able to glitch through it would be really worth it.
You can also understand why, if you were to fall, you would get set back quite a ways. So there we go with the setup.
Nope.
Brother Main went for it, and he at least held on. Depending on how hard you go for it, you might not be able to get back to the platform. But it's not too bad. Which it's not. It's you know, players are going to be going for it. That tells you enough about how safe it is to try to go for it. Though certainly, even if it was quite risky, maybe players would go for it anyway, just because of how beneficial it is in this stage.
I don't know, because it's all about, like, it's all maths and statistics. Like, you are weighing if it's worth it to go for a skip that would save you a minute, but is it worth it if you just make it like about 10% of the time and it costs 20 seconds? It's hard to tell. But what we do see that following your recommendation, a lot of runners, including Devil Tifa, are going for those infinite jumps glitch above a lot of levels, which is a very nice, very smart move, I'd say. Like, it's way easier that if you practice a lot of those infinite jump glitches, you can focus on the levels that you cannot glitch through, and it's just a good learning practice and safe strat for the tourneys we are setting up here. So very nice. We do not like enjoy so much of the levels, but we can see everything about it, and we see that it's those last few later levels are actually quite dense in enemies and pits and hazard in general. So it's, you know, nice breathers through those two levels where we see Brother Main, Melwest, and Devil Tifa just infinite jumping, and Skunkov will catch them as soon as they're done with that level. I wonder if they're going to succeed at the jump roll. I do not remember who we saw succeeding live at. We saw just one jump roll, and I do not remember who it was.
Oh, I don't remember either. That's a shame. We could see it number 2, maybe. But for now, Brother Mean done with Manic Mincers. Mel West into Misty Mine, also going to be super jumping here. Double Tifa is already done with Misty Mine, is on Loopy Lights, I think it is. Skunkoff looked like he didn't spawn the bird in the right place. Kind of failed the setup, and that's going to kill your chance at going for it pretty much. You need to spawn the bird early to make sure that it's down near your platform at the right time, and then even then, like, the setup itself is not so set in stone. It's not like if you always press this button here, that button there, then the bird's going to be in the right place. It's a little wishy-washy, but you can get it close enough, and then you need to do the frame perfect input to get the jump roll. So it's a pretty complicated endeavor.
The goal of the setup is for the players to roll onto the Neki with just one roll. Like if you set up correctly, if you were to roll off the platform, you would jump onto the Neki. That's when you know you got the setup correctly. So if the bird is too high, you would miss the jump roll all the time because you do not bounce onto it. And you do control the spawning of the bird depending on when you spawn it on the screen. So if you move the screen at the correct pace, you are going to get the Neki at the correct place, and it's all good from there. But I do appreciate that Skunkoff did try to set up the Neki correctly. It's not too easy. That's something extra you have to learn on top of not dying and the overall layout. And Devil Tifa going for the jump roll here, and it didn't die, and very nice. That jump roll, we've seen some runners actually die trying to go for it. It is like DKC is way harder than it looks. Once again here, very nice.
So for now, Devil Tifa playing it nice and safe, using the barrels to take out these enemies. Platform goes zipping off backwards. We're not interested in going backwards, so we roll off of it immediately to get into the exit. So we're done with platform perils. There's a refight with Neki, which is I think the only source of RNG in the run. So that's nice, and it's not too bad. You want him to be low if you can help it, but you can't because it's RNG. So you deal with it as best you can. And then we've got the fight against K. Rool.
Yeah, that was the worst pattern for Devil Tifa, and it's not too bad. It doesn't take that much longer. We saw Mel West saving again, very nice. I do appreciate that. They're just sitting at 7 extra lives, and just better, you know, to be safe in the tourney setting. They want to get to the final of the July tournament we are having today. This is the second round. We already had a few players eliminated, and only 4 will make it today. And Devil Tifa, Mel West, and Skunkoff are, and Brothermain are looking pretty good. We do not know where the other 4 are standing, but I do expect, weirdly enough, DKC not to be that bad for anybody, and because so far so good. Like, it's almost the best runs we are seeing today from all those runners. We did miss the 212 points from Brothermain on Spectra Ball, but we cannot see it all, sadly.
Yeah, I think from the 4 players we've had on stream for each race, this has definitely been the most solid performance all around. Which you know, you would think after it goes bad, it wouldn't get better at the end. You would think it would start strong, and then something would happen, and then it wouldn't come back. But whatever it was, the players kind of figured out what they were dealing with, or maybe there's just something about DKC that that players have just, something to focus on, to not think about whatever was going wrong with some of those other races. But it definitely has been a big turnaround for the final game of the semifinals. That is not quite over yet. Fake credits done for Devil Tifa.
Best
Needs
credits.
to get a couple more hits on K. Rool here.
Devil Tifa is the only players we've seen died, and they've died twice on King K. Rool, so they have to be careful. And we see them jumping alongside with K. Rool, which scares me all the time, but this is done. Time for Devil Tifa at 38:30, I'd say. Their PB, let me see that. Devil Tifa, their PB is at 38 minutes, so that's a fantastic run. Didn't go so well anywhere else but DKC, but that's going to be a very nice boost in confidence, because in 1 week we are doing all 10 games through the Saturday and Sunday, and it's going to be intense. And if you have a nice confidence in the longer games, being Shovel Knight and DKC and maybe Castlevania Eye of Sorrow, you just have to GRS the other games and it's going to be easier, I'd say. Devil Tifa, they have to work on Spectrable and Cuphead, and maybe a little bit on The End Is Nigh, but upon that they've done very well last week, and had a nice tournament today.
Mal West is joining Brother Main in the King K. Rool fight. Brother Main's done with the credits. There's some safe spots you can find from these cannonballs that really make this fight a lot easier. And I think one more hit, or is it two? I can't remember. He goes right, then left, and then, yeah. All right, here we go.
It's always longer. It's always one cycle longer than you'd expect.
Yeah, that's going to do it, though, for Brother Main.
Very nice.
And that's going to basically lock in Devil Tifa and Brother Main for 2 of our top 4. Skunkoff is racing to try to earn enough points to hold on to his position.
And they're actually racing also for PB, apparently. I see a lot of green on those splits, and those platforms are quite dangerous, but Skunkoff is taking it slow and safe. And with a late jump here that scared me. You gotta grab those barrels, and we see Mal West getting that final hit on King K. Rool. And yeah, very close race between Devil Tifa, Mal West, and Brother Main. Devil Tifa finishing first, Brother Main second, and Mal West in third place. And we'll see the Necky's revenge in Skunkoff, and then a final round of applause with King K. Rool, and that's going to set the story for today, I guess.
Yeah, we don't have Zof on stream. Not sure what happened, or if he's even still racing. But he was the 5th place person, set to contest any of our top 4, and Skunkoff was maybe the one to really keep an eye on, because Zof had the better time in this game, even if Skunkoff wasn't the lowest down of the 4. But this has been a great run. Wow, look at the split.
Yeah, they are 3 minutes ahead of PBE. They're going to be able to sign off. Very nice time. I wonder if those splits are PB or not, because Skunkoff's PB, they're at 43 minutes and 16 seconds. So yeah, maybe actually they're going to be able to beat that, but it feels like those splits are at 46 minutes, like they're comparing to some average
or race or something.
Yeah, race splits maybe. But yeah, like King K. Rool's a bit long, but it's so close to PB. We need those fake credits, and then the 3 hits going to be tight. The sum of best of those splits, with only 4 runs, actually, you can see on top right corner. So I don't know, but their best, the sum of best is at 41 already, with longer splits, meaning they are probably accurate on what the runner can do. 41 minutes is a very good time. I'd say as soon as you hit sub 40, you can consider yourself as a very experienced DKC runner. Like the 40-minute mark is very tough to get to.
Even making it under our cutoff for UD is when you kind of really become a DKC speedrunner in earnest, and these guys are blowing way past that and are starting to push past 150, 200 points on the UD scale, which has been super impressive. There goes the credits, and there goes the PB as well for Skunk Off, but it's going to be like a minute off the PB in a 44-ish minute game, so that's going to be a fantastic run, and that's the strong finish he was really looking for. If Zof had come in with a really strong run, right, this is the run he needed to make sure that he keeps him shut out of that top 4 and guarantees his position to compete next weekend.
Yeah, 44 minutes and 1 second for Skunk Off. Very nice run. They can be very happy with that. We'll see. Maybe we have Zof and Sabliers. I don't know where they're at. Maybe they actually died horribly and something wrong happened. We never know. Maybe they just gave up knowing they could not catch back. But if we do not have any clue about what's going on, we're going to wrap it up here, and it looks like Skunk Off, Devil Tifa, Melwest and Brother Main are going to be our top 4 runners for next week and for the UD in July in general. Best runner so far. We've seen them through all the 10 games, and as chat mentioned, Skunk Off was in 9th place last week, and they've done incredibly well today, finishing at either 2nd or 4th spot. We'll see once we have the time. And Zof and Sablier with no points marked on DKC. I wonder if that's just saying that they have not put their time yet. I don't know.
Well, we definitely don't have Skunk Off's time yet, and that will that was definitely under the mark, so there, bing, pops into place.
Right.
Not quite enough to jump into 3rd. Not that it matters, as top 4 is what matters for the cutoff, but it would have been nice to come out of the previous tournament and be like, hey, I just beat Mel West, right? Like that is a thing. Speaking of beating Mel West, Brother Main beat Mel West in every single race. Beat Devil Tifa in every race but Donkey Kong. Just a dominating performance.
Yeah, DKC was a little bit behind that, but 948 points. You want to aim, if you get 200 per game, you are the most experienced player on all those games on the UD. Clearly, the 200 mark on DKC is very tough to get. The 200 mark on D&Disney is very hard also. The 200 mark on Story About My Uncle is doable, but it's very, very tough. And actually, we see the updated time, I think, for Skunk Off entering his actual timer rather than the website time, and getting to 818 points, right on par with Mel West. To distinguish the 2 runners, we would have to sum their time and see what how well it goes down to the 2nd. But Skunk Off, 18 points, sharing the 3rd step of the ladder here with Mel West. Very nice performance, outshining everybody on Cuphead. And if you were top 4 on Cuphead, that meant you were top 4 at the end, and I would not have bet on that at all. The time difference was not enough. Anyway, very nice performance from all our runners. We are going to get the end story of that tourney next week on Saturday and Sunday. We are going to get all 5 games on Saturday and 5 games on Sunday, where all the times are going to, well, the points are going to be added up, and the top 2 will get the place for the grand finals. It's going to be very exciting. I don't know what you think about that.
I think it's going to be great, especially after the close competition we had today. I mean, Brother Main kind of ran away with it a little bit, but a straight-up tie for third place is pretty fantastic. It's been a treat to see Skunkoff, who came in finishing 9th, was not actually supposed to be playing today. LF couldn't make it, so we brought in 9th place. And you might be feeling like, you know, did I really earn my place here? You guess what? You just did.
Yeah,
with
clearly.
A fantastic performance today is gonna, you know, remove all that doubt. And yeah, that's been great to watch. It's only gonna continue as 2 of these 4 great runners earn their spot for grand finals next weekend, and it's gonna be all 10 games. So it's gonna be a packed UD weekend, and it's gonna be hard for the players as well. Like we definitely saw them struggle a bit today with a number of games, and I think it had something to do with, hey, we were doing these 5 before, and now we're doing these 5, and so that effect is only going to get worse, I think, when you have to do them a day apart rather than a week apart. So it's going to be a big challenge. I think the players are up to it. I think even though things didn't go quite as well for them today as it did in some of the other tournaments, overall, I think it's something that they should still be proud of. And yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And there's going to be, even after this tournament, there are more tournaments pretty much exactly like it waiting around the corner. And this is good stuff. UD is heating up.
Yeah, so now for runners, they've done a race in a tourney setting on all 10 games, so they know on what game they've underperformed and on what game they've done like superb. And Devil Tifa knows they don't have to practice DKC, say, that much compared to Spectrable or Cuphead. But my guesswork would be that the games they had trouble with today were games they don't like as much and have trouble grinding anyway, so it's going to be a tough week where you know what you're supposed to do, and maybe you don't want to do that due to personal preferences. And my advice for runners would be, like, clearly do not burn out. Like, go for what you like. If you don't want to practice Cuphead, you are already good enough to be on top 4. Practice your strengths if that's where it's fun for you, and maybe you can grab some extra points that are worth the effort and your time. So it's pretty tough. It's a tough spot for all 4 runners. Skunkoff maybe did not expect to get there and got there like completely outperforming Melwest and Tifa on 4 games out of 5, which is insane. Brother Main, they did great on last week. They did not had the time to go for Shovel Knight, but still made it past the cutoff of 8 players. And now they probably have to practice a little bit more Shovel Knight. And yeah, overall it's all about what they are going to do. I do not know what order we are going to play the games through, because we are going to switch up things a little bit, just so it's ever slightly so different. And we do enjoy the game at another pace. Obviously, the most fun, like deciding games like DKC and Shovel Knight are going to be pushed towards the end, but it still has to be balanced between the Saturday and the Sunday. So we'll see. I don't know yet. It's yet to be decided. We'll see with the runners what they are more comfortable with, and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, man, for sure. So that's gonna do it for our UD broadcast today on Speed Gaming. There's a mountain of stuff. I was trying to mentally keep track of all the games that are going to be on just today alone.
No,
there is like Celeste, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze, Link's Awakening DX, Oracle of Seasons, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Metroid, Super Mario World, Bit Race, Chrono Trigger. Like the game variety today, Nier Automata still, man, there's Mega Man X, there's Speed Gaming is busy today. If, you know, like UD, there's a lot of different things for you to sample from. So I think what's coming up actually next on this channel is going to be Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons. So stay tuned for that, and definitely come back in a week for the conclusion of our July tournament.
Yeah, like I would totally stay on Speed Gaming 1 if I had the time today, because like Oracle of Season right after that, then Super Metroid is going to be we are early in the Super Metroid any-person tournament, so it's you know, very varying in runners. Probably like you're going to see runners you don't know about. Super Metroid has a huge community, so it's pretty good to get to know them. Then you have some Mario World randomizer, and then the day ends with Super Mario some more randomizer, and then tomorrow it's like the same story all the day long. It's impossible to keep track of that. That's why you have the ! schedule in the chat. And yeah, take care. Do enjoy all those tourneys, and we'll see you in a week. And actually, I cannot cut the stream right now because the French streamers are still speaking, and I wonder what they're saying. I was just about ready, and I was like, shit, they're not in the loop yet. Sorry about that. But that brings me to seeing all the runners performing on the 10 games. What game would you recommend to practice the most on the next week, Mythical?
Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight was a problem last tournament. It wasn't quite as much of a problem as some of these games today were for some players, but I think today was a bit of an anomaly. I think Shovel Knight is a game that cannot be slept on. It'll get you. Very small mistakes will lead to really big time losses, and it's just such a long game with so much to it that there's so many opportunities for that to happen. So I think Shovel Knight definitely needs at least a run through, and then the others all kind of run together. I don't know. Shovel Knight stands above the others for me.
Well, what's weird is that Metal Slug shines actually, like Skunk Off, which is probably going to be the underdog, so I'm going to root for Skunk Off, obviously. But Skunk Off did not have a time on either Shovel Knight or Metal Slug. Skunk Off had the first place on Trials 2, did very well on Castlevania Eye of Sorrow, had the first spot today on, what was it, Cuphead? So it's, yeah, Cuphead, sorry. It's one of those runners that does either gets first place or fourth or fifth place, and they probably want to put practice on the End is Nigh, Shovel Knight, and Metal Slug. But like you said, like everybody has to practice Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight, Mel West got 161 points last week. That's 30 points ahead of Devil Tifa. So single-handedly, Shovel Knight could decide directly. If we started with Shovel Knight, it could be the game decider already. So it's going to be very interesting to see if the runners go back to practicing it. When actually, like, Castlevania Eye of Sorrow was totally mastered by all the runners. No problem whatsoever with the game. They all got the manip, if I recall correctly. They all got like very good times. Devil Tifa got a 34:48, which is about 2 minutes and a half of PB, which is like fantastic on that game. Inertia was very good also for everyone but Skunk Off, which is always nice to see. And yeah, today it was all about The End is Nigh, a little bit about Donkey Kong. And big shout out to Zov, Sabliev, Vlad, Cute Shadow that did not make it today, but still had the were in top 8 in the first week. That means after when we qualify 2 runners to the grand finals next week, that means that they are going to be the next contestant to get to the finals during August, because that's 2 spots that frees up. So we'll see how well that goes for them. But obviously we are going to switch the order of the games for the playoffs and the semifinals. So maybe they're not going to be so lucky with the draft, and they're going to have to wait up until September to qualify for a semifinal again. So we'll see how well it goes. It is going to be interesting to see. I don't know where the Frenchies are. They're still speaking. It freaks me out, man.
It definitely freaked out our viewers when we had the crosstalk coming in. But yeah, so I thought it was going to be Devil Tifa and Mel West are going to breeze through this tournament. They're going to be the top 2, and then everyone else can finally compete in peace with them gone. But after today, that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of people out there who can keep up with them if they show signs of faltering. Yeah, there's 8 spots across all of the UD. I think I won't be surprised. I mean, definitely 2 at least of the names we have today are going to be in there. I won't be surprised if a lot more than the 2 do go on and qualify for some of the other tournaments. But there's some other stuff, like there's players who aren't competing in this tournament who are going to show up for those other tournaments. So there's some big question marks, some really strong players. Names like, well, let's see, who's in the overall top 10. We got like Toru, Silv Shady, Barramondo. These are really strong players. Jant as well. So, you know, 2 people are going to qualify, but more people are going to show up ready to play. So it's going to be interesting to see how even future tournaments develop here, even though I am very much mostly looking forward to next weekend and the culmination of the tournament we're already in.
Yeah, so let's focus on next Saturday at 11 a.m. East Coast, or that's 5 p.m. in Europe. That's 6 p.m. in Russia. If you're interested, there are restream in Russian, French, and English in here in Speed Gaming. So yeah, that's it for today. The conclusion with Brother Main, Devil Tifa, and Mel West and Skunkov is ready for us in a week. See you there.